Chapter 332. The sun was shining brightly, and a gentle breeze passed through the wooden window. The room was quiet and peaceful. However, Chu Liwei seemed to be frozen on the spot, unable to move at all. The blood in her body seemed to have frozen at this moment, and her cold limbs seemed to have gone numb. In her mind, it was as if someone had smashed a huge hammer. It was dull and painful. She held the piece of paper. It was light and thin, but it seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. She only felt her vision go white, and every word on the paper was like a sharp knife that ruthlessly pierced her heart. She almost couldn't breathe. Xuanhuan, Xuanhuan. This name had been buried deep in her heart, and she didn't even want to mention it in her dreams. Now it had appeared clearly on a piece of moon rice paper. She had always thought that she had hidden it very well and had even deceived Chu Ning, who had been with the original body. However, she didn't expect that someone had already known about it. The other party clearly knew her biggest secret, but she didn't even know who the other party was. Chu Liwei felt dizzy. She bit the tip of her tongue hard, letting the sharp pain wake her up. She quickly looked around. After confirming that there was no one else around, she heaved a heavy sigh and looked at the letter carefully. There was only one sentence on the paper. Other than that, there was nothing else. Chu Liwei compared the handwriting of that sentence with the handwriting on the envelope and found that it was indeed written by the same person. If she had seen such strong and vigorous handwriting before, she would definitely remember it. Unfortunately, no matter if it was in her previous life or this life, none of the people she knew had such a handwriting. However, the other party obviously knew her and had a high status. Or rather, they were extremely powerful. Otherwise, they definitely wouldn't have been able to obtain the moon rice paper. Chu Liwei stared at the letter and fell into deep thought. Who could it be? Since her rebirth, she had been staying in country Yao Chen's imperial capital. This place was thousands of miles away from the Tianling dynasty, and she had no way of contacting anyone from the past. Moreover, after experiencing the inhumane torture in the imperial ancestral hall, she had already lost her trust in everything in the past. Even Mu Qinghe, whom she had never suspected, had betrayed her, let alone the others. Her rebirth was her biggest secret and also her biggest trump card. She originally thought that she could become stronger step by step, and then go back and take revenge on those people. Take back everything that belonged to him. But now that this letter had suddenly appeared, she suddenly realized that things were developing in a direction that she could not foresee. How have you been? How have you been? Chu Liwei murmured as countless faces flashed through his mind. Judging from his tone, he seemed to be quite familiar with her. However, she really couldn't figure out who the other party was. At this moment, she suddenly felt a strange movement in her dantian. Holding his breath and concentrating, the original spirit looked inside. Inside his dantian, the water droplet quietly floated. Directly below, within the heavenly square medicinal cauldron, a black-colored flame transformed into a legendary three-eyed eagle illusion. It was ferociously staring at the outside of the heavenly square medicinal cauldron. Dumpling? The two fiends were fighting with each other through the transparent heavenly square medicinal cauldron. Judging from the burnt fur on Dumpling's body, they had been fighting for a long time. Chu Liwei couldn't help but hold her forehead. Why are you fighting again? It hasn't even been 2 days since you came out of Jiuyo Tower, and you have already fought 5 times. Haven't you fought enough? Dumpling remained motionless as she stared at the legendary three-eyed eagle opposite her. Although the legendary three-eyed eagle was a divine beast, it didn't have a physical body now. Only a soul was left in the karmic fire, and its size was about the same as Dumpling's. The legendary three-eyed eagle's scarlet eyes were indifferent and cold. If it wasn't trapped in the heavenly square medicinal cauldron, it would have long rushed out and killed this reckless thing in front of it 1,000 times. No matter what, it was a renowned paragon back then. Now, it was reduced to fighting with a mere blood ferret. It was really shameless. Looking at the two fiends who were still at daggers drawn, Chu Liwei pondered for a moment, looked at Dumpling and said, "Dumpling, if you continue fighting, I won't stand up for you." Dumpling swung its tail and angrily pulled it up. Chu Liwei then saw that there was a burnt patch on it. "You're not angry because of this, are you?" Dumpling nodded fiercely. "That's it. Its beautiful fur had been destroyed. It had never suffered such grievances before. If it didn't get revenge for this, how could it continue living in this world?" Chu Liwei was speechless as she looked at its angry and self-righteous look. "Isn't this because you provoked it first?" Although she wasn't paying attention to the situation in her dantian, it didn't mean that she didn't know anything. Dumpling choked. A look of mockery flashed across the legendary three-eyed eagle's eyes. "A mere third-grade fiend. Its level isn't high, but it has many problems. Dumpling was instantly enraged. Chu Luiwei glanced at the legendary three-eyed eagle indifferently. You're a divine beast, but aren't you staying here and fighting with a mere third-grade fiend? The legendary three-eyed eagle was stunned and felt extremely embarrassed. It flapped its wings fiercely. If it wasn't trapped by the heavenly square cauldron, it wouldn't have experienced such humiliation. Chu Luiwei saw that the two fiends finally stopped fighting, but another question arose in her heart. Dumpling was indeed a third-grade blood ferret. Facing the legendary three-eyed eagle, it should be respectful and fearful. However, the current situation didn't seem to be the case at all. Dumpling didn't seem to be as respectful as other fiends towards fiends that were of a higher grade than itself. It was like this when it faced the black flying python in Wanling Mountain, and it was the same when it faced the legendary three-eyed eagle now. But the key was that the legendary three-eyed eagle was a divine beast. What kind of secret was Dumpling hiding? Chu Luiwei looked at Dumpling and pondered for a while. She suddenly said, I remember that third-grade blood ferrets have the chance to break through and increase their grade. Dumpling, what about you? Dumpling was still hugging its tail pitifully as if it didn't care about this question. Chu Luiwei thought for a while and felt that there was no point in asking these questions. Dumpling wanted to follow her and she could feel that Dumpling liked and relied on her. Perhaps this was enough. As for those mysteries, perhaps they would be solved in the future. Chu Luiwei opened her eyes and looked at the letter in her hands again. After a while, she put the letter away and placed it in her cosmic bag. The Si family. Study room. Si Ting looked at Si Yi. His brows were slightly knitted on his cold face, and it was obvious that he didn't agree. You're asking me to find Chu Luiwei to ask about Rongzhen's whereabouts? Si Yi coughed. I know that you don't like to do these things, but this is very important. I can only rest assured if I leave it to you. Si Ting paused and said coldly, I'm not going. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. The wounds from the previous fight had already healed, but it still felt that it had affected its image, so it had been staying obediently for the time being. It wanted to wait until it was completely healed before going out. Once bitten, twice shy. I've taught you this lesson too many times. If you don't listen, you'll be the one who suffers in the end. Mu Qinghe glanced at Hong Yao and poured herself a cup of tea. Hong Yao pretended not to hear anything. Mu Qinghe looked at the rising white smoke without any expression on his face. You're only a 7th grade fiend now. How dare you fight with a divine beast? Hong Yao froze. It had not revealed anything from the beginning to the end. How did Mu Qinghe know? Mu Qinghe narrowed her eyes when she saw its reaction. It seems like it's true. It had been tricked. Hong Yao suddenly understood and was very annoyed. Mu Qinghe was just guessing and tricking it. Hong Yao glared at Mu Qinghe fiercely. It was always like this. It would betray its master sooner or later. Mu Qinghe picked up the teacup and rubbed it slowly. Divine beast. This place is indeed. His voice was very low and it was almost inaudible. Suddenly Hong Yao felt a familiar aura. Its eyes lit up as it flapped its wings and flew outside. Mu Qinghe looked up slightly and looked at the door with deep meaning. Chu Luiwei looked up slightly and looked at the house in front of her. This was Mu Qinghe's residence in the Imperial City. There were no guards outside the door and even the streets beside it were deserted. She didn't meet anyone on her way here. Those who didn't know would find it strange if they came here. However, Mu Qinghe was the one living here, so everything made sense. In the Imperial City, there were countless people who wanted to visit Mu Qinghe in order to establish a relationship with him. However, nobody dared to do so. Even Emperor Jiawen didn't dare to disturb him, let alone others. She heard that Emperor Jiawen originally wanted to send a few people to serve Mu Qinghe, but he rejected them all. Hence, there wasn't a single servant inside or outside the house. Mu Qinghe lived here by himself. However, there was a transparent barrier outside the door. From afar, one wouldn't notice anything strange. However, once one got close, they would immediately feel a strong suppression. Chu Luiwei was thinking about how to knock on the door when a green figure suddenly flew out from the wall and went straight for her. Hong Yao. Chu Luiwei looked shocked, but she thought in her heart, Hong Yao's sensitive sense of smell is still the same as before. It can even tell that it's me from so far away. Hong Yao happily flew in front of Chu Luiwei. I was about to die from boredom these 2 days. I didn't expect Chu Luiwei to come today. Hong Yao, your master, creak. Before Chu Luiwei could finish her sentence, the door suddenly opened from the inside. An entrance appeared above the spirit formation. Hong Yao quickly flapped its wings, urging Chu Luiwei to hurry in. Chu Luiwei's lips curved up slightly as she walked in. Walking through the front yard and the corridor, Chu Luiyue finally came to a room. The door was open and Mu Qinghe was sitting inside drinking tea. Chu Luiyue was hesitating whether to speak or not when Mu Qinghe said without raising her head, "Just come in." Chu Luiyue followed Hong Yao in. "Greetings, Vice Admiral Mu." After the first time, it was much easier to bow to Mu Qinghe again. Only then did Mu Qinghe look up. "If you feel bored here, then you can go and focus on your cultivation." Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment before realizing that these words were directed at Hong Yao. Red Demon rolled its eyes, unwilling to give up. It had heard this kind of words countless times. If it was in a good mood, it might listen to it. But now she was here. How could it be dismissed like this? Hong Yao landed next to Mu Qinghe's hand and drank tea from her teacup. Half of its head was almost buried in it. After drinking enough, it raised its head and shook its head violently. The tea splashed everywhere. Mu Qinghe gave it a warning look. Chu Luiyue suddenly said, "Vice Admiral Mu, I came here today to discuss something with you. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network." Chapter 334. Mu Qinghe then looked at Chu Luiyue. His voice was as cold and indifferent as ever. "Speak." Hong Yao knew when to stop. It immediately took the opportunity to run and hide behind the window. Chu Luiyue glanced at it from the corner of her eye and sighed in her heart. Hong Yao was really troublesome. It knew that Mu Qinghe hated it when people touched his tea, but it still dared to do so. It was really rare for it to survive until now. It was strange. Mu Qinghe came from a humble background. When he was young, he had to snatch rotten buns from beggars and did not have a good day. Later on, when he followed her, his conditions in all aspects improved a lot. However, he was not like other people who had risen from poverty and were passionate about those luxuries. Instead, he was wholeheartedly focused on cultivation and war. Except for one thing, tea. Even she did not know when he fell in love with tea. Not only did he like to drink tea, but he also liked to make tea. Chu Luiyue remembered that he had good tea brewing skills. Even the tea masters in the palace might not be comparable to him. She stopped thinking and looked at Mu Qinghe. She briefly told him her plan. "So, I'm here this time to hope that you can approve it. As for the length of time I stay in Taiyan Academy, it's up to you." Mu Qinghe picked up another cup and poured a cup of tea. He looked at Chu Luiyue with a scrutinizing gaze. "It seems like you're sure that I won't leave here in the short term. That's why you have the guts to make such a request?" Chu Luiyue's smile did not change. "Didn't you say before that you would stay here for a period of time? I don't know how long you're referring to, but I'm here to ask. After all, it's an extremely rare opportunity to borrow books from other academies' libraries for free. I don't want to miss it. Vice Admiral Mu, please understand." Mu Qinghe did not speak for a long time. Other than looking for a genius with a Daijingyuan meridian, he did have other important things to do this time. It would definitely not end in 3 to 5 days. Chu Luiyue's request did not seem wrong. "However, you can go if you want, but I have a question that you have to answer honestly." Chu Luiyue nodded. "Vice Admiral Mu, please speak." Mu Qinghe stared at her. "That day in Juyo Tower, did you get something?" Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. Then, her eyes widened slightly as if she was surprised and curious. "What do you mean?" Mu Qinghe didn't say anything. He just looked at her with a deep gaze as if he wanted to expose her lie. His cultivation level was extremely high, so the pressure on his body was also extremely strong. His piercingly cold gaze was almost tangible. If it were anyone else, they probably wouldn't be able to withstand such scrutiny. But Chu Luiyue was different. She had met Mu Qinghe when he was at his lowest. She had seen him at his most miserable and pitiful state. She had also given Mu Qinghe a chance to become the youngest deputy general of the Tianling dynasty. She had seen him in his most glorious state. Hence, Mu Qinghe's gaze was completely useless to her. She frowned slightly as if she was thinking. After a while, she shook her head. "Vice Admiral Mu, I'm sorry. I really don't know what you're talking about. That day the situation was critical. Prince Li and I escaped with great difficulty. Not only did we not bring anything with us, but we also almost lost our lives there. What exactly do you want to ask?" Mu Qinghe looked at the woman in front of him. Intelligent, quick-witted, and a genius. Her expression was so sincere that it even made him wonder if his initial guess was wrong. Chu Luiyue pursed her lips hesitantly. Then she asked softly in a probing tone. "Vice Admiral Mu? Are you looking for something?" Mu Qinghe's gaze sharpened. The aura on his body instantly surged, and it surged toward Chu Luiyue. Screech. Hong Yao let out a clear cry. A green flame instantly flew in front of Chu Luiyue. It transformed into a barrier. It blocked Mu Qinghe's coercion outside. The two forces fought crazily. Bang! The tea set beside Mu Qinghe's hand shattered. Even the entire set of tables and chairs had many cracks on them. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. She was just asking a probing question. She didn't expect Mu Qinghe to have such a big reaction. This only proved that she was right. But why did Mu Qinghe come all the way here? What exactly is he looking for? The forces of both sides gradually dissipated, leaving the entire room in a mess. Chu Luiyue glanced at the broken teacup on the ground. It seemed to be freshly soaked Jinjun Mei. In the past, Mu Qinghe never drank this kind of tea. She retracted her gaze. Vice Admiral Mu, did you misunderstand something? I just wanted to say that very few people set foot on the upper floors of Juyo Tower. Prince Li and I were able to come out safely from the 6th floor thanks to the things his mother left there. If you really want to find something, perhaps Prince Li will have some clues. The murderous intent in Mu Qinghe's eyes gradually faded. No need. As soon as he finished speaking, the room fell into a dead silence. Chu Luiyue felt that if this continued, the matter might not be settled. She could only cough to break the deadlock. Vice Admiral Mu, your tea spilled. Why don't I compensate you with a pot of tea? I happened to get a bottle of superior grade Jinjun Mei some time ago. Although it's definitely not good enough for you, but no need. Mu Qinghe interrupted her and paused for a moment. I'll give you 10 days. Chu Luiyue smiled happily. Thank you, Vice Admiral Mu. Although this person's temper became more and more unpredictable, she was still very happy that he was willing to agree to her request. Mu Qinghe looked at the smiling girl in front of him and was momentarily dazed. That pair of bright and pure black jade-like eyes were too similar. They were clearly two different faces, but when they smiled, the expression between their eyebrows was so similar. However, when he took a closer look, he felt that it wasn't the same. There were too many things hidden in Chu Luiyue's eyes. That was an expression that only someone who had experienced countless hardships would have. She was different. She was always noble, pure, and clean. Mu Qinghe averted his gaze without batting an eyelid. During this period of time, the number of times he had thought of her was simply too frequent. This was not a good thing. Go back. Remember, you only have 10 days. Chu Luiyue noticed that Mu Qinghe's mood seemed to have changed a little, but she knew that it was no good for her to stay, so she happily bowed and left. Hong Yao followed her to the door reluctantly. She had only been here for a short while and she was leaving. Moreover, according to what they said just now, didn't it mean that it would not see her for the remaining 10 days? Chu Luiyue walked to the boundary and looked back at Hong Yao, who was reluctant to leave. She leaned closer and whispered, "You're too young. I'll bring you a gift when I come back." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 335. Hong Yao then cheered up again. Chu Luiyue stepped out of the barrier and left. Hong Yao watched as her figure disappeared. When it was sure that she had left, it suddenly let out a joyful cry. I finally have a present again. Hong Yao happily returned to the courtyard and saw Mu Qinghe cleaning up the broken teacup. Hong Yao was in a good mood, so it didn't plan to continue arguing with Mu Qinghe. However, it still couldn't help but go over and fly one round around Mu Qinghe. Mu Qinghe looked up and coldly glanced at Hong Yao. It seems like she knows how to coax you. Hong Yao proudly raised its head. Mu Qinghe said in a low voice, I won't help you in the future. I won't help her for your sake in the future. You're on your own now. Also, I know that you're so close to her because you think that she's similar to her. However, I'm warning you for the last time. It's hard to predict people's hearts in this world. If she knows this, she'll definitely think of ways to make use of you. Don't regret it then. After all, he was Hong Yao's master. How could he not guess Hong Yao's thoughts? From the first time he saw Chu Luiyue until now, there was only one reason why Hong Yao was so close to her. He could tolerate it once, but it didn't mean that he would let people take advantage of him. Hong Yao glanced at him faintly. Ah, stupid human. I wonder who's the one who'll really regret it then. Even though 10 days was relatively short, it already surprised Chu Luiyue. What made her even happier was that Mu Hongyu told her early the next morning that her mother had arrived in the imperial city. This took less time than she expected. The news of Princess Consort Ping Zhang's arrival in the imperial city quickly spread, and Emperor Jiaowen specially sent people to welcome her. However, considering that Princess Consort Ping Zhang's health wasn't good, he didn't hold a palace banquet to welcome her. Mu Hongyu and Chu Luiyue went to Prince Ping Zhang's mansion in the imperial city together. I didn't know that your father had a special residence in the imperial city. Chu Luiyue followed Mu Hongyu into the strictly guarded Wang Fu and was somewhat surprised. Mu Hongyu giggled. Because my imperial father will come back to the imperial capital for 2 months every 3 years. Therefore, His Majesty specially approved a residence for my father. I came here once when I was a kid. I didn't hear you mention it before. Why didn't you stay here after you entered the academy? Why did you stay in the academy instead? Mu Hongyu made a face. Who wants to live here? With so many people, there were also many rules. It was not convenient at all. It's best to stay in the academy. Chu Luiyue thought about it and agreed. Not only was the academy free and convenient, it was also safe. With Mu Hongyu's personality, it was hard for her to imagine living here alone. The two of them walked inside. When he arrived at the backyard, a white-robed old man with white hair was already standing there waiting for him. Upon seeing the old man, Mu Hongyu was overjoyed and rushed forward. Grandpa Wu Shan, you're here too? The wrinkles on Wu Shan's face bloomed like a flower as he chuckled. Young princess, it's been a few months since we last met. This old man misses you dearly. Quick, tell this old man, has the young princess been crying in the past few months? Mu Hongyu couldn't help but pout. Grandpa Wu Shan, we haven't met for so long. Why are you talking about this the moment we meet? I'm already 16 years old. I've stopped crying long ago. Wu Shan's face revealed a trace of surprise. Young princess has already broken through to become a stage 4 warrior? Mu Hongyu wrinkled her nose proudly. Of course. Young princess has really grown up. And she's getting more and more outstanding. If His Highness and Her Highness knew about this, they would be very happy. Wu Shan sighed. Mu Hongyu hurriedly asked. By the way, how is mother now? The smile on Wu Shan's face froze and a trace of worry appeared. Young princess, you should go and see for yourself. Mu Hongyu's heart sank. Could it be that mother's condition is worse than I imagined? That's right. After all, she has been traveling day and night. Perhaps her condition has worsened. I'll go and take a look. Mu Hongyu said as she pulled Chu Luiyue into the house. However, Wu Shan suddenly blocked the two of them and swept his gaze across Chu Luiyue. Look at me. I forgot to introduce her. Grandpa Wu Shan, this is Chu Luiyue. It's all thanks to her that Vice Admiral Mu is willing to help this time. Wu Shan was shocked when he heard the name. He hurriedly took a step back and cupped his hands. So it's Miss Chu. Sorry for the disrespect. Although they had just arrived at the capital city, the name Chu Luiyue was very well known. I really don't know how to repay your kindness this time, Wu Shan said with a face of gratitude. Senior Wu Shan, you're too kind. Hongyu and I are friends, so this is what I should do. Chu Luiyue glanced at the anxious Mu Hongyu and smiled. If you don't mind, I would like to visit the princess consort with Hongyu. Is that okay? Of course. Of course. Please come in. The princess consort's condition was very serious, but no outsiders knew about it. Wu Shan and the rest were very vigilant along the way. If it were someone else, they would definitely not agree. However, this person was Chu Luiyue, so there was no problem. After all, without her help, the envoy of the Tianling dynasty would not agree to hire a celestial physician to treat the princess consort's illness. Chu Luiyue and Mu Hongyu quickly walked into the house together. Wu Shan stood outside and watched over them. The moment they entered the room, Chu Luiyue saw a woman lying on the bed. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. This must be Mu Hongyu's mother. Her eyes were closed and her face was pale. Her cheeks were sunken, and there was an aura of death between her brows. She looked very haggard. Mu Hongyu's eyes reddened as she rushed to the bedside. Mother. When the princess consort heard the voice, her eyeballs seemed to move and she slowly opened her eyes. Her eyes were dim, and she was exhausted as if she had exhausted all her energy. She looked at Mu Hongyu and reached out with difficulty to touch Mu Hongyu's face. She revealed a pale and weak smile as she said in a hoarse voice. Mu Hongyu's eyes instantly welled up with tears. She immediately lowered her head to wipe them away as if she did not want her mother to see her like this. However, as she held her mother's bony hand, she couldn't stop her tears from rolling down her cheeks. Mother. Why are you like this? Mu Hongyu had left home to study at Tianlu Academy for less than a year. Although her mother's health was not good in the past, she was not like this. The princess consort helped Mu Hongyu wipe her tears slowly, but she quickly lost her strength. Another old man in green standing by the bedside stroked his beard. Young princess, don't worry. Wait for the people from the Tianling dynasty to come. There will definitely be a way. Mu Hongyu knew that this was her only hope now, so she could only nod and swallow her tears. A clear female voice could be heard. May I take the princess consort's pulse first? Digression, 12 a.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 336. Everyone in the room looked at Chu Luiyue. Mu Hongyu naturally had no objections and nodded in agreement. Then she looked at Princess Consort Ping Jiang and said, "Mother, this is Luyu. She's my best friend in Tianlu Academy." Vice Admiral Mu only agreed to help because of her help. Princess Consort Ping Jiang looked at Chu Luiyue with a loving gaze. "Thank you so much, Mother. Luyu is also a celestial physician. You probably don't know, but she refined a pill during the Qingjiao competition a few days ago. In other words, she's a real celestial physician. Let her take a look at you. She might be able to help." Princess Consort Ping Jiang smiled and nodded. "I'll listen to you." Just as Chu Luiyue was about to step forward, the green-clothed elder beside her suddenly said, "Young princess, I'm afraid this isn't very appropriate." Chu Luiyue looked up slightly. Mu Hongyu was stunned. "Grandfather Ji Chang, what do you mean?" Ji Chang stroked his beard and said earnestly, "Don't worry. Young princess, I know you're thinking for the princess consort. However, I'm afraid Miss Chu won't be able to help with this matter." Mu Hongyu thought for a moment and asked, "You don't believe me? Do you not trust Luyu?" "Of course not." Ji Chang shook his head. "Miss Chu is very famous and we've all heard of her. To be able to form a pill at such a young age is enough to prove Miss Chu's shocking talent. However, the princess consort has been seriously ill for a long time. Even the top celestial physician in country Yao Chen can't do anything about it, let alone Miss Chu. Why don't we wait for the Tianling dynasty's celestial physician to come before we take a look?" Mu Hongyu furrowed her brows in displeasure. "Grandfather Ji Chang, I'm just asking Luyu to take my mother's pulse. It's not a big deal. Besides, the celestial physician from the Tianling dynasty hasn't arrived yet, so we can only wait. It won't hurt to let Luyu take a look. Aren't you being a little too cautious?" Ji Chang looked a little troubled. "Young princess, I didn't mean to stop you, but, Sai, you don't know. Before we came here, His Highness told us to keep the princess's condition a secret. We can't let anyone know about it, so you still don't trust Luyu?" Mu Hongyu was really angry this time. She stood up and looked straight at Ji Chang with a solemn expression. "Grandfather Ji Chang, Luyu has helped us so much. Why are you still so wary of her? If I can't even trust her, then there's no one I can trust in the capital. You're hurting my heart." Ji Chang didn't seem to expect Mu Hongyu to value Chu Luiyue so much. For a moment he was at a loss. "But, His Highness, I'll talk to Father about it. Besides, even if Father is here, he won't be so unreasonable." Mu Hongyu didn't want to talk to him anymore. She turned to look at Chu Luiyue. "Luyu, don't take it to heart. Come and take a look at my mother." Ji Chang was a little embarrassed and could only take a step back. Chu Luiyue was deep in thought. This Ji Chang seemed to be especially reluctant to let her touch the princess consort. She walked forward and put her fingers on the princess consort's wrist. Ji Chang looked over. Chu Luiyue's expression didn't change. After a while, she let go of her hand. "Liu, how's my mother's condition? Can you see anything?" Mu Hongyu asked anxiously. Chu Luiyue shook her head. "The princess consort has been ill for many years and her body is extremely weak. But other than that, there's nothing I can do." Regret surfaced on Mu Hongyu's face. The celestial physician in the past also said the same thing. Moreover, she could clearly feel that her mother's condition was worse than before. Chu Luiyue patted her shoulder lightly. "Don't worry, the celestial physician in the Tianling dynasty will definitely have a way." Mu Hongyu forced a smile. "I hope so." Just as the atmosphere in the room became heavy, Wu Shan's voice suddenly came from outside. "So it's Vice Admiral Mu. Sorry for not welcoming you, it's really disrespectful." Hearing the sound, the people in the room all looked outside. Chu Luiyue walked to the door and saw Mu Qinghe in the courtyard. Beside him stood a young man in blue. That man looked to be in his 20s and wore a blue brocade robe with a white jade belt around his waist, outlining his tall and smooth body. He was very tall. Mu Qinghe was a general and was already very tall and strong. But this man standing beside him was a head taller. But what was more eye-catching was that he had a pair of blue eyes. Those eyes were like the purest ice crystals, shining with a cold light. But there was a careless smile on his face, making him look like a demon that looked at the world with a cold smile. Chu Luiyue's heart seemed to have been hit by something. How could it be him? Wu Shan was standing in front of Mu Qinghe and Luyu, extremely nervous. "I'm so sorry. We didn't know Vice Admiral Mu was coming today, so we didn't prepare at all." Wu Shan was secretly ashamed of himself. He was already so old and had seen so much, but he didn't expect to be so nervous in front of these two young men. Actually, he couldn't be blamed. It was mainly because the aura of Mu Qinghe and the young man in blue was too strong, and he couldn't ignore it at all. Just by standing there, he already felt an inexplicable pressure, and even his breathing became a little labored. Mu Qinghe didn't want to waste time and looked up to see Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue went forward in surprise. Vice Admiral Mu. I didn't expect you to come directly. Hong Yu and I have just arrived, so please forgive us for not taking care of you well. As she spoke, she walked to Wu Shan. Senior Wu Shan, leave this to me. You can continue to guard the courtyard. Wu Shan instantly heaved a sigh of relief and felt grateful toward Chu Luiyue. Okay. Chapter 337. Mu Qinghe glanced at him coldly with a hint of warning. Jian Fengqi didn't take it seriously and smiled flirtatiously. Even I can see it. Can't you see it? Those eyes are really… Jian Fengqi. Mu Qinghe's voice sounded like it was mixed with ice shards. Jian Fengqi finally restrained himself and shrugged. Okay, I won't say it. Although he was talking to Mu Qinghe, his eyes were fixed on Chu Luiyue. To be precise, he was looking at her face. May I know your name? He was tall and handsome, and when his icy eyes stared at a person seriously, it was as if they could transform into a surging sea, bringing with them an ambiguous and affectionate feeling that made people sink into them. Chu Luiyue couldn't remember how many girls he had won over with his looks. Everyone in the Tianling dynasty knew how flirtatious Jian Fengqi was, but there were still countless girls who flocked to him, just to beg him to look at them a little more. But he had always been in the midst of flowers and never touched a single leaf. Chu Luiyue couldn't figure out how he got rid of those girls, and how they didn't complain about him and couldn't forget him. Chu Luiyue tried her best to suppress the urge to punch the man in the face, and her lips curled into a perfect polite smile. Chu Luiyue. Oh. Jian Fengqi's eyes lit up for a moment, and he glanced at Mu Qinghe meaningfully as he dragged out his words. What a good name. Chu Luiyue had always been too lazy to pay attention to him, but now that there was a great disparity between their statuses, she had to accept it. Thank you for your compliment, young Master Jian. Luyu can't thank you enough for coming all the way here to help. Jian Fengqi was still smiling, but there was a trace of surprise in his heart. Most women would blush and their hearts would race when they saw him. Even the worst would have a look of admiration in their eyes. But this girl in front of him had never changed her expression since she saw him. This is rare. No wonder he could persuade Mu Qinghe to ask for his help. If there wasn't a special reason, he didn't think that Mu Qinghe would be willing to spend so much effort to invite him over. Not at all. It's my honor to have a beauty's request. Chu Luiyue rolled her eyes in her heart. She thought that many things had changed after more than a year. But now, it seemed that Jian Fengqi's coquettishness was still very good. Then, Vice Admiral Mu, young Master Jian, this way. Chu Luiyue did not want to be entangled with him for too long, so she turned sideways and invited them into the house. Just lead the way, said Lu Yu nodded. Chu Luiyue didn't insist and took the lead. Looking at her back view, Jian Fengqi poked Mu Qinghe's arm and lowered his voice. I think I know why you invited me over now. Mu Qinghe's expression was as cold as usual. She looked straight ahead and didn't intend to bother with Jian Fengqi. Jian Fengqi took out a handkerchief and placed it on the princess consort's wrist before putting his long fingers on it. Mu Hongyu hesitated for a moment, but still couldn't help but add on. I originally thought that he wasn't a good person, but now it doesn't seem to be the case. Chu Luiyue and her looked at each other. She didn't know why, but she felt that Mu Hongyu's words just now seemed to have meant he wasn't a good person. However, seeing that Mu Hongyu wasn't infatuated with Jian Fengqi like other girls, she was greatly relieved. She didn't want Mu Hongyu to provoke this guy. Jian Fengqi raised his eyebrows slightly. It seemed that they didn't know that although their voices were very soft, he could still hear them clearly, right? Immediately, his expression froze. Everyone in the room was looking at him. Seeing the change in his expression, they all quieted down. Mu Hongyu couldn't hide her worry as she held Chu Luiyue's hand. Chu Luiyue gently patted the back of her hand. Princess Consort Pingjiang lay weakly on the bed. Although her eyes were dim and lifeless, there was still a faint trace of hope. Chu Luiyue suddenly thought of something. Her gaze turned slightly and looked at Ji Chang, who was standing at the side. At this moment, his hands were crossed in front of him, and his eyes were fixed on Jian Fengqi. He seemed to be particularly nervous. Chu Luiyue could even see him licking his cracked lips, looking worried and tense. Jian Fengqi let go of her hand. Ji Chang was the first to speak. Young Master Jian, Do you have a way to cure the princess consort's poison? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 338. Jian Fengqi pondered for a moment. The poison in the princess consort's body seems to be a mixture of several types, and they were administered at different times. Mu Hongyu exclaimed. How could this be? All this time she had thought that the poison in her mother's body was caused by an accident many years ago. She never thought that, mother is what he said true. Mu Hongyu quickly looked at Princess Consort Pingjiang. Princess Consort Pingjiang's eyes flashed with bitterness and she smiled bleakly. That's right, Jian Fengqi added. If I'm not wrong, the princess consort's body should have suddenly deteriorated in the past 2 months, right? Princess Consort Pingjiang nodded. That's it. Jian Fengqi stood up. The first few types of poison in the princess consort's body had been buried in her body for many years, and had already seeped into her organs. But because they were not highly toxic, they did not cause too serious of a consequence. But recently, someone administered another type of poison, which triggered all the toxins in the princess consort's body at the same time. That's why she was defeated like a landslide, resulting in the current situation. Mu Hongyu looked as if she was struck by lightning, and she stared blankly at Jian Fengqi. Then, what should we do now? Can you get rid of all these poisons? Jian Fengqi frowned slightly, and he seemed to be in a difficult position. This is a difficult task. After all, these poisons were administered at different times, and they are of different types. To get rid of all of them, not only do we have to know what these poisons are, but we also have to avoid new problems during the detoxification process. If we're not careful, all our previous efforts will be wasted and even. Jian Fengqi paused. Even if he did not finish the rest of his sentence, everyone knew what he meant. Mu Hongyu was a little absent-minded. Could it be that even the celestial physician of the Tianling dynasty could not do anything? Ji Chang heaved a long sigh and his face was full of grief. Young Master Jian, please think of something. The prince and the princess consort are deeply in love, and have supported each other for many years. If the princess consort... Of course. Jian Fengqi suddenly interrupted Ji Chang, and the corner of his mouth curled into an evil smile. Ji Chang was stunned for a moment, and the sorrowful expression on his face instantly froze. You mean, this poison is very difficult to deal with, but I didn't say that I can't deal with it. Jian Fengqi's smile deepened. Everyone finally understood what Jian Fengqi meant. Chu Luiyue cursed in his heart. As expected, he was still the same. If he didn't speak like this, it would seem that he couldn't show how powerful he was. However, Jian Fengqi also noticed that something was wrong with Ji Chang. Don't worry, everyone. I will definitely clean up the princess consort's poison and let her recover completely. Chu Luiyue's gaze quickly swept across Ji Chang's face before he lowered his eyes. She clearly saw the shock and fear that flashed across Jian Fengqi's eyes when he heard him say that he could cure the princess consort of Pingjiang. It's not hard to understand the shock, but what's with the fear? The fact that he could escort Pingjiang Wangfei all the way to the imperial capital meant that Pingjiang Wangfei trusted him a lot. Moreover, from the way Mu Hongyu addressed him in Wushan, they were also very close to each other. It doesn't make sense that he would be afraid after knowing that Pingjiang Wangfei's body could be cured. Chu Luiyue recalled that when she wanted to check Pingjiang Wangfei's pulse, Ji Chang refused several times as if he was afraid of something. Perhaps he had a guilty conscience. Young Master Jian, is what you said true? Can you really cure my mother? Mu Hongyu didn't notice anything unusual, her mind was only filled with Jian Fengqi's words. Jian Fengqi looked at the young girl who rushed to him in a few steps, her almond-shaped eyes shining brightly. His heart skipped a beat and his smile deepened. Of course, I Jian Fengqi always keep my word. If he couldn't solve such a small problem, then he would have wasted all these years. Mu Hongyu was extremely excited. She pounced to the bedside and held Pingjiang Wangfei's hand. Mother, did you hear that? Your illness will be cured. Pingjiang Wangfei didn't have any extra strength at this time. She could only smile with a pale face and look at Mu Hongyu. Chu Luiyue said, Hong Yao, it seems that the Wangfei needs to rest. Let's go out and talk. Mu Hongyu nodded repeatedly. All right. Then, Mother, you rest here first. I'll come to see you later. Pingjiang Wangfei nodded reluctantly. I still have to thank young Master Jian and Vice Admiral Mu, and Luyu. She finally closed her eyes and rested after saying those words with great difficulty. Chu Luiyue and the others walked out. Mu Hongyu just stood up and saw a handkerchief on Pingjiang Wangfei's wrist. She picked up the handkerchief and shouted at Jian Fengqi, who had already walked to the door. Young Master Jian, your handkerchief. Jian Fengqi paused in his steps and turned around to take a look. Chu Liyue's lips moved. She almost directly asked Mu Hongyu to throw the handkerchief away. Jian Fengqi had a problem. He was a celestial physician and often had to take people's pulse. However, every time he examined someone, he would spread a handkerchief like this time and never touch it with his own hands. The material of the handkerchief was extremely precious, but he would only use it once and throw it away. He had been like this since Chu Liyue met him. She didn't know why. Other than that, he had many hobbies that were neither too big nor too small, and he was very persistent. Even when she was the heavenly fate princess, she also felt that this man was very fussy. Unexpectedly, Jian Fengqi stared at Mu Hongyu and didn't ask her to throw the handkerchief away. Instead he laughed. "Oh, I almost forgot." As he spoke, he walked towards Mu Hongyu. Chu Liyue looked at him as if she had seen a ghost. "What's wrong with him?" Jian Fengqi seemed to have noticed something and tilted his head to look at her. Chu Liyue immediately lowered her eyes and continued to walk towards the door. Jian Fengqi narrowed his eyes. He didn't know why, but he felt that Chu Liyue seemed to dislike him. Even if she always had a polite smile on her face, he still felt that way. And this feeling was inexplicably familiar. He suppressed the thoughts in his heart and reached out to take the handkerchief from Mu Hongyu's hand. The two people's hands touched for a moment. However, he didn't seem to feel it. He bowed slightly with a smile on his face. There was a hint of elegance in his eyes. "Thank you, Miss Mu." Mu Hongyu smiled brightly. "Young Master Jian, you're welcome. If there's anything you need my help with in the future, just let me know." Jian Fengqi looked at her and raised his eyebrows slightly. This Mu Hongyu seems a little too innocent. If an ordinary woman was touched like this, even if she wasn't tempted, her face would turn red. However, Mu Hongyu didn't seem to have any reaction at all. Only then did he vaguely realize that the bright light in her almond-shaped eyes was indeed because of her mother's recovery, and not because of him. This made him feel a little conflicted. Why are these two women each weirder than the other? Chu Liyue, who had walked out of the door, waved at Mu Hongyu. "Hongyu. Digression? Why is it so long?" "Because I went to the hospital in between. My body is a little inflamed, but it's not serious." Love mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from love. Chapter 339. Mu Hongyu responded and immediately walked towards Chu Liyue. She didn't even spare a glance for Jian Fengqi. Jian Fengqi was speechless. What was with this feeling of being ignored and despised? He looked down at the handkerchief and quietly grabbed it in his hand. When he turned around, his expression had already returned to normal. The few of them walked out, leaving only Ji Chang inside. "Young princess, the princess consort is weak. Shall I stay here to take care of her?" he said to Mu Hongyu. Mu Hongyu thought about it and was about to agree when Chu Liyue suddenly squeezed her hand. Mu Hongyu's mind raced, and she immediately realized something. She hurriedly changed the words she was about to say. "But you've been taking care of mother all this time. You must be tired. You should go and rest first." Ji Chang was stunned. "Young princess, don't worry. I'm still in good health. As for the princess consort, His Highness entrusted everything to me in Wushan. We naturally don't dare to slack off. If the princess consort, Vice Admiral Mu and young Master Jian are here, not only is she safe, but even if something happens to the princess consort, they can immediately deal with it. Senior Ji Chang, don't worry too much." Chu Liyue smiled. "But, don't tell me you don't trust these two?" Chu Liyue said jokingly, but there was a hint of scrutiny in his eyes. "I don't dare." Ji Chang's voice lowered. "Then, I'll go and rest first. If there's any problem, I'll definitely rush over immediately. Young princess, don't worry too much." Mu Hongyu nodded. "Go ahead. We'll be here." Ji Chang had no choice but to turn and leave. Under the pressure of Mu Qinghe and Jian Fengqi, he didn't even look back. When his figure finally disappeared from sight, Mu Hongyu couldn't help but look at Chu Liyue. "Liyu, did you deliberately send Grandpa Ji Chang away?" Chu Liyue asked. "Don't you feel that something is wrong?" Mu Hongyu thought about it carefully and murmured with uncertainty, "I don't think so. But he didn't seem to want to leave just now. Liu, you might not know this, but Grandpa Ji Chang and Grandpa Wushan have been with Father since a long time ago. They have been secretly protecting Mother and me all these years. He's probably just worried." Chu Liyue looked at her quietly. Mu Hongyu's voice gradually became softer, and her expression was somewhat shaken. "Hongyu, don't tell me you didn't find it strange," Chu Liyue said lightly. Mu Hongyu was a straightforward person and wasn't shrewd, but that didn't mean that she was stupid. On the contrary, she was very smart. It was only because she was too close to Ji Chang that she trusted him too much that she couldn't see it clearly for a moment. Mu Hongyu frowned. Of course she could tell that something was wrong. Grandpa Ji Chang seemed to be especially protective of Mother. Chapter 340. After settling Mu Hongyu's matter, Chu Luiyue planned to leave. Mu Hongyu was a little surprised. "You're leaving now?" Chu Luiyue glanced at Mu Qinghe and smiled. "Time is of the essence, so I have to leave quickly. But don't worry, since Vice Admiral Mu and young Master Jian have agreed to help, they will definitely take care of it. If you need any herbs, you can go to Zhenbao Pavilion to look for Second Master Yan. Put all the expenses on my tab. When I return, I will look for him myself." Mu Hongyu shook her head resolutely. "No way. You have already helped me a lot, how can I let you spend more?" Chu Luiyue thought about it and didn't insist. "Then tell him to give me face and ask him to help you. He will help you gather the herbs you need." The poison in Princess Consort Ping Zhang's body was indeed difficult to detoxify, but with Jian Fengqi's strength, it wasn't a problem. It was just that he might need a few special herbs. It might not be easy to find them in the capital, but Zhenbao Pavilion would definitely have them. If Mu Hongyu went by herself, Second Master Yan might not be willing to take them out. That was why she asked Mu Hongyu to mention herself. In this way, Second Master Yan would most likely be willing to help. Chu Luiyue didn't tell Mu Hongyu the details. But Mu Hongyu was extremely intelligent. She had already guessed something and wanted to say a lot of things, but when they reached her mouth they seemed to be stuck. In the end she only said one sentence. "Luyu, thank you." Chu Luiyue nodded. Although she didn't get along with Jian Fengqi and didn't like him, he was indeed a man of his words. If he said that he would refine pills here to help Princess Consort Ping Zhang, then he would definitely do it. Mu Hongyu's face was full of reluctance. Chu Luiyue wanted to remind her to be careful of Jian Fengqi, but she felt that it was unnecessary. Mu Hongyu was an iron tree and would only be Jian Fengqi's nemesis. Chu Luiyue looked at Mu Qinghe and asked with a smile, "Vice Admiral Mu, do you want to stay here or?" Mu Qinghe didn't say anything and left. Mu Hongyu leaned in and whispered, "Lu, don't you think Vice Admiral Mu's expression is a little bit bad?" Chu Luiyue lightly said, "Oh? I don't think so." "Really?" Just now, for some reason, his expression suddenly changed. Although he did an expression of his expression, but, Mu Hongyu frowned and couldn't think of how to describe it. In short, he just felt bad as if he thought of something bad. "I haven't seen his expression like that." Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. "I didn't notice." If possible, she wanted to chase after him and ask him face to face what was wrong. Was he upset? Or embarrassed? All she did was say betrayal. What was he thinking? In the past year or so, when had he ever thought about anything related to her? Chu Luiyue took a deep breath. She suddenly wanted to know what expression Mu Qinghe would have if he knew that she was her? And those people, Luyu? Mu Hongyu suddenly felt that Chu Luiyue's aura had turned cold, and it was shrouded in a strong sense of loneliness and despair. She felt uneasy and hurriedly spoke. Chu Luiyue came back to her senses and saw her worried face. "Are you okay?" The aura on Chu Luiyue's body quickly dissipated, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. "I'm fine. Those people should be the ones who are not fine." Mu Qinghe returned to his house. It was rare for him to be in a trance and his heart felt like it was blocked by something. It was very uncomfortable. He closed his eyes and tried to calm himself down, but Chu Luiyue's words kept echoing in his mind like the most profound curse. In this world, no matter how close the person is to you, no matter how much you trust them, there is a possibility that they will betray you. When that time comes, you may not even know how you died. The woman's clear and gentle voice rang in his ears again and again. "This is not right, this is not right." Mu Qinghe barely found a trace of rationality. He sat on the chair and habitually wanted to make himself a cup of tea. Every time he was upset, he would do this to calm himself down. However, when he poured the tea, he stared at the teacup and could not help but think of something. Everyone thought that he loved tea, but in fact that was not the case. It was just that making tea could always calm him down. In the past, a burning pain came and he immediately woke up. Only then did he realize that because he was absent-minded, the hot tea had spilled on his hand. He closed his eyes fiercely and angrily swept the tea set to the ground. Crash! A crisp cracking sound echoed in the room, making it seem especially empty. Hong Yao, who was standing on the windowsill, looked back at him and lazily buried its head in its wings. A sharp pain suddenly came from his heart. Mu Qinghe's expression changed. He suddenly covered his chest with one hand and gasped for breath. Immediately he took out a diamond-shaped bronze mirror with difficulty. Hong Yao did not move, but its body tensed up. The next moment, a dazzling light suddenly flashed on the bronze mirror. In the room, an invisible pressure suddenly descended. On the bronze mirror, the light gradually dissipated, and a scarlet sea appeared. A voice came out from it. Mu Qinghe, it's been so long. Why haven't you made any progress on what I asked you to do? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 341. It was a young man's voice. It was low and indifferent, but there was a hint of coldness in it that made one fearful. Mu Qinghe endured the pain in his heart and gritted his teeth. Don't worry, master. I'll do it as soon as possible. You don't have much time left. The seawater in the bronze mirror seemed to be rippling, and the thick smell of blood was suffocating. Everyone else thinks that you went to look for the Daijingyuan meridian, but this reason can't be delayed for too long. If you can't do it as soon as possible, then you don't have to come back in the future. Because of the pain, Mu Qinghe's lips turned even paler. I understand. The blood-red seawater gradually dissipated, and a white light enveloped it. After a while, the bronze mirror returned to normal. Mu Qinghe then felt that the pain in his body seemed to have lessened. He closed his eyes, put away the bronze mirror, and leaned against the chair dejectedly. Hong Yao, who was standing by the window, suddenly flew over and landed on his shoulder. Mu Qinghe opened his eyes and glanced at it. Hong Yao inched closer and rubbed against his face. Mu Qinghe was silent for a long time before saying softly, "Don't worry. It won't take long." Chu Luiyue returned to the academy and told Yi Zhiding about her plans to go to Taiyan Academy. Although Yi Zhiding was reluctant, he knew that this was an excellent opportunity. It would be a pity to give it up. In the end, he decided to send Chu Luiyue to Taiyan Academy personally. If it weren't for the fact that the academy still had to deal with Jiuyou Tower, he even wanted to go there and accompany Chu Luiyue before bringing her back. Chu Luiyue repeatedly said that she would only stay there for 10 days and would be back soon. Yi Zhiding was finally relieved. The master and disciple pair packed up and headed there together. Country Xingluo Taiyan Academy. After the Qingjiao competition ended, xuanhuan and the elders had already brought the students back. Because they didn't get good results, the atmosphere in the entire academy was heavy and stifling. Since Heng Jingshua had used the red blood goo during the Qingjiao competition, the other two academies had also sent their elders to Taiyan Academy to investigate. Everyone who had dealings with Heng Jingshua was investigated. Taiyan Academy had never experienced something like this before. Naturally, they felt extremely embarrassed this time and everyone was panicking. Who knew what kind of people Heng Jingshua had killed before he died? Even if it wasn't red blood goo, it could be some other poison. In short, the entire academy was in a mess and xuanhuan was also in a terrible fix. He even handed the herb mountain, which he had always meticulously taken care of, to Situ Xingqian. The so-called herb mountain was actually one of the many mountains behind Taiyan Academy. It was only because there were all kinds of precious herbs growing on it that it was called the herb mountain. However, even though the herb mountain was in Taiyan Academy, it belonged to xuanhuan. Thus, not to mention the students, even the elders in the academy did not have the right to approach the herb mountain. Situ Xingqian stayed on the herbal mountain for 2 days and realized that something was missing, so she wanted to go back to take it. She walked down the mountain, and when she reached the foot of the mountain, she saw a few familiar figures not far away. They were a few young men and women. Even though they were all wearing the academy's uniform, Situ Xingqian still recognized them at one glance because she had always been on good terms with them. She was about to go up and greet them when she heard her name. "Why haven't I seen Xingqian these past 2 days?" asked one of the young men. Situ Xingqian's lips moved, but before she could speak, she heard another young girl laugh. How can she still have the face to come out now? Situ Xingqian's body suddenly froze as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over her head. Almost subconsciously, she took 2 steps back and hid behind a tree. "Xiaoyun, aren't you going overboard with your words? Xingqian didn't do anything wrong. How can you say that about her?" The young man seemed a little angry. I'm going overboard? Who doesn't know that she won first place in the celestial physician competition because of Chu Liuyue's pills? Luckily, I didn't go this time. If not, it would have been so embarrassing. I really don't know how she still has the face to come back to the academy," said the other girl with a mocking smile. "That's right. I heard them say that Chu Luiyue didn't even touch her back then. She failed because she wasn't capable enough. In the end, she actually pushed the blame to Chu Luiyue. Who knew that he would really succeed? Even helped her win first place. If it were me, I wouldn't dare to ask for first place. The young man was so angry that his face flushed red. But Xingqian's talent and abilities are also very good. Who can compare to her when you're talking about her here? Of course we can't compare to her, so we've always listened to her. But this time she embarrassed the entire academy. Can't we be a little unhappy? Zhongling, we know that you like her, but why don't you think about it? Has she ever looked you in the eye? The young man choked and couldn't say anything. Situ Xingqian's standards are very high. So many young talents have proposed to her, but she didn't like any of them. Great, now her reputation is half ruined. Let's see if so many people still like her. Situ Xingqian was so angry that her entire body trembled, and her fingernails dug deep into her palms. Hadn't she suffered enough humiliation during this period of time? I didn't expect these people to talk about her like this. Countless people in Taiyan Academy and even the entire country Xingluo probably think this way. Just as she was thinking of how to deal with these people, she heard one of the girls say, "Oh, right. I heard that Chu Luiyue arrived at our academy today?" Digression, I feel better after taking the pills. I don't know if it's the side effects, but I feel nauseous the whole morning. Instead, he returned safely to the Chu family. Situ Xingqian knitted her brows. She had also heard about Chu Xinmin's incident. It was normal for her to secretly kill Chu Luiyue in order to become the crown princess. You think there's something wrong with this? Of course. Your Highness, don't forget that Chu Luiyue was still a good-for-nothing with a damaged Yuan meridian back then. As for the people Chu Xianmin sent, according to my investigation, one of them was a Stage 3 warrior. Situ Xingqian was stunned. Even though a Stage 3 warrior was not considered strong, it was not difficult for him to deal with a girl who had no cultivation. If Chu Luiyue returned alive, then what about the other 3 people? They're dead. A strange smile appeared on Elder Lian Ning's face. Also, it's the kind where no one knows if they're alive or dead. As the 3 people's identities were ordinary, and Chu Xianmin was afraid of being exposed, she purposely suppressed this matter. Hence, their disappearance did not attract anyone's attention. Coincidentally, Chu Luiyue underwent a drastic change from that day onward. After returning to the Chu family, she bought many herbs from Zhenbao Pavilion. Not long after, she was admitted to Tianlu Academy. Everyone knew what happened after that. Many guesses flashed across Situ Xingqian's mind. She hurriedly asked, "What about the second matter?" The second matter is coincidentally related to that forest. You probably don't know that country Yao Chen's 4th princess, Rongzhen, has gone missing. Situ Xingqian knew about Rongzhen, but they did not interact much, so she did not have a deep impression of her. Didn't her pearl of essence shatter and she's been recuperating in the palace? Why did she suddenly go missing? Also, there doesn't seem to be any news about this. Even though she returned to Taiyan Academy, she did not cut off contact with the outside world. If Rongzhen really went missing, such a big matter should have spread. Because Rongzhen ran out on her own. He had been secretly investigating Chu Luiyue all this time and did not expect to find out something. That day, Chu Luiyue was forcefully taken away from Tianlu Academy by a Stage 5 warrior. I hid my aura and followed them all the way. In the end, I discovered that they went to that forest. I did not follow them in, but not long after, Chu Luiyue came out. After that, people started secretly searching for Rongzhen's whereabouts in the imperial city. As long as all these things were connected, it was not hard to imagine what happened that day. Situ Xingqian was shocked and only spoke after a while. That means that Chu Luiyue killed Rongzhen? Elder Lian Ning pondered for a moment. That might not be the case, but after she left, I went into that forest to search, but I didn't find any traces. As for the Empress, she still doesn't dare to make a big fuss about it. Chapter 343. Taiyan Academy. Chu Luiyue raised her head slightly and looked at the 5-story library in front of her. The golden words on the signboard shone brightly under the sunlight. This is the library. Elder Emote Song was standing beside Chu Luiyue. Although he did not like Chu Luiyue, Xuanhuan did not want to see her, so he sent him. 2 young men in academy uniforms standing at the entrance bowed respectfully when they saw the 2 of them. Greetings, Elder Emote Song. Elder Emote Song nodded and looked at Chu Luiyue coldly. For a period of time from now on, you can borrow any of the books here. Come in with me. Chu Luiyue did not mind his attitude and followed him in. As soon as they entered, Chu Luiyue saw that the walls were filled with all kinds of books. There were rows of shelves in the middle and they were also filled with books. She quickly scanned the place. Elder Emote Song stopped in his tracks and turned to look at Chu Luiyue. However, he did not see the shock on her face. He coughed and emphasized, "This is the first floor. There are tens of thousands of books related to cultivation on the first floor." Chu Luiyue nodded calmly. Elder Song was even more displeased. The collection in Tai Yen Academy's library was as vast as the sea. It was rare for an ordinary family to have a few books on martial techniques. Even the aristocratic families would only have a few hundred books at most. However, they had tens of thousands of books here. Chu Luiyue did not react at all after hearing his words. This made Elder Song very aggrieved. He could not help but sneer secretly. She was just pretending. "I heard that Tianlu Academy has a lot of books too. Although it's not as good as ours, there should be at least a few thousand books, right?" he asked casually. Chu Luiyue nodded again. "Yes. Many of the books here are not available in our academy." Elder Song laughed proudly. Just as he was about to say something, Chu Luiyue continued. "Master said that although the academy is big, he would rather leave it empty than leave it for trash." Elder Song almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Trash. Did Chu Luiyue know what he was saying? You're saying these are trash?" Chu Luiyue smiled. "Please don't misunderstand. That's not what I meant. I'm just saying that a part of this place is you." Elder Song suppressed the anger in his heart and shouted in a deep voice. "Chu Luiyue, you better be polite. If you continue to speak rudely, we'll chase you out even if you get first place in the Qingjiao competition." Chu Luiyue looked at him sincerely. "Elder Song, you're overthinking things. I'm not being disrespectful to your academy, but many of the books here are indeed not worth collecting." As she spoke, she walked to the side and casually picked up a book. Tiger Wolf Fist, Intermediate Yellow Grade. The martial techniques that warriors cultivate are divided into 4 levels: Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow. Each level is further divided into upper, intermediate, and lower levels. Yellow is the lowest level. Moreover, it's only an intermediate level, so it's not worth mentioning. Normally, martial techniques of this level are meant for Stage 2 warriors, right? Chu Luiyue's lips curled up. But our academy only accepts warriors who are Stage 3 and above. Thus, our academy doesn't have any books like this. Elder Song was speechless. Their academy recruited more students than Tianlu Academy, so their standards were naturally not as high as Tianlu Academy's. There were still many Stage 2 warriors in Tai Yen Academy. Apart from that, they were passionate about collecting all kinds of books. They had the most books among the 3 academies and they were proud of it. Why did it sound so cheap when it came from Chu Luiyue's mouth? What do you know? It's not only high-grade martial techniques that are worth collecting. Tai Yen Academy's book collection is all-encompassing. It can be described as complete. Chu Luiyue smiled but did not say anything. If this little library could be considered as complete, then she really didn't know how to describe her private study room in her previous life. Seeing Chu Luiyue's smile, Elder Song somehow felt even more uncomfortable. Chu Luiyue did not say anything but he felt inexplicably embarrassed. "This is only the first floor. You won't say that when you see the books upstairs." With a flick of his sleeve, he began to walk up the stairs. Chu Luiyue raised his brows slightly. "I hope so." Elder Song stopped in his tracks. "I shouldn't have come if I knew this would happen. Chu Luiyue can anger someone to death with just one mouth. She better not be too presumptuous during this period. Otherwise I'll definitely teach her a lesson." The 2 of them went up to the 2nd floor. The space here was as big as the 1st floor, but there were fewer books here. Instead, there were some glowing balls of light. These balls of light contain martial arts techniques as well. However, their levels are much higher than the ones below. Elder Song's confidence was boosted a little. "I don't mind telling you that there are many lost copies here. However, it's up to you whether you can open them or not." The balls of light were corresponding barriers. The higher the level of the item, the stronger the barrier's defensive power. Based on Chu Luiyue's strength, he might not even be able to open a profound-level martial arts technique, let alone others. Chu Luiyue asked in return. "Do you mean that I can see all of these?" Elder Song sneered. "As long as you can do it, it's up to you." Chu Luiyue did not seem to notice the mockery in Elder Song's voice. A sincere smile appeared on his face. "Your academy is really generous." Elder Song's heart skipped a beat. He felt that something was amiss. After thinking for a while, he could not figure it out, so he gave up. He raised his hand and pointed upstairs. "The 3rd floor is filled with Shen formations. The 4th floor is filled with prescriptions. I still have things to do, so I won't be showing you. You can do whatever you want." He felt that if he continued to stay with Chu Luiyue, He would be so angry that he would fall sick. Chu Luiyue didn't mind. She just looked up and asked curiously, "Why are you here?" "Then, what about the 5th floor?" Elder Emote Song's expression turned serious. "Only the academy head is allowed to enter the 5th floor. Although you can read here for free for a month, that doesn't include the 5th floor." Chu Luiyue nodded. "The books on the 4th floor should be enough for you to read. As long as you follow the rules, we won't make things difficult for you. However, if we find out what you're doing here, don't blame us for being rude." Chu Luiyue agreed with a smile. "Don't worry. I won't be here for long, so I won't waste my time on other things." Elder Emote Song was relieved. He gave a few more words of advice and left. Soon, Chu Luiyue was the only one left in the library. She looked at the balls of light in front of her. She crossed her arms and tapped her chin with the other. "Where should I start? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet." Chapter 344. Elder Emote Song walked out of the library and looked at the 2 guards. "Be careful during this period of time. Apart from the 1st floor, all books borrowed from the other floors must be recorded in the book. If there are any abnormalities, inform me as soon as possible." The 2 guards replied respectfully. "Yes." Elder Emote Song was slightly relieved and couldn't help but turn around to take a look. The door was closed and everything was peaceful. Although Chu Luiyue's words were harsh, this was Tai Yen Academy after all. She was a smart person and wouldn't cause any trouble for him. But for some reason he felt uneasy. He didn't know where this uneasiness came from, but he felt as if his heart was suspended in mid-air, as if an accident would happen at any time. He frowned and felt that he might be overthinking. He erased the worry in his heart and turned to leave. However, as soon as he left, the 2 guards standing at the door suddenly sensed something and looked at the gray-white stone tablet placed on the right side of the door of the library. At this moment, a line of words suddenly appeared on the stone tablet. "Snow Walk, Middle Stage Mystic Stage." After a while, the words on the stone tablet gradually converged and formed a star that shone brightly on the stone tablet. "This has already started?" one of them asked in bewilderment. "How is this possible?" She opened a middle stage mystic stage martial arts technique. "Didn't they say that Chu Luiyue is only a stage 2 warrior now? How can she open a book of this level?" The other person immediately denied. "But, her strength is comparable to a stage 4 warrior. Logically speaking, she should be able to do it, right? But even a stage 4 warrior needs some time to open a middle stage mystic stage martial arts technique." Elder Emote Song just left, and Chu Luiyue opened it less than 15 minutes ago. How could she do it? Could it be someone else in the library who took it? According to the rules, the students of our academy are not allowed to enter the library unless there are special circumstances. She is the only one in the library now. The 2 of them looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. If their guess was correct, it meant that Chu Luiyue was stronger than they thought. Don't worry. Even if she opened the book quickly, it would still take a lot of time to study. It wasn't like this had never happened before, but usually, those people would only be able to read 100 books at most in a month. Among them, there are only a few who are truly proficient. That's true. Let's record down the first book she borrowed. One of them took out a booklet from his bosom and recorded the words that appeared on the stone tablet. However, before he could finish writing, another person suddenly exclaimed. He looked up in confusion. "What's wrong?" The man was dumbfounded. His hand, which was pointing at the stone tablet, trembled slightly. That. She has already opened the second book." "What?" The man in charge of recording hurriedly looked over and saw another line of words appear on the stone tablet. "Scarlet Flame Chop, Mystic Middle Stage." Another Mystic Middle Stage martial skill. The 2 of them were stunned. The impact of this matter on them was so great that they didn't dare to confirm that it was true for a moment. I'm not seeing things right? It's Mystic Middle Stage?" The man in charge of recording rubbed his eyes. The words had turned into a second star, right next to the first. In other words, these 2 books were of the same level. Chu Luiyue had indeed opened the second Mystic Middle Stage martial skill. How did she do it? She should have only read the beginning of the first book, right? How did she open the second one? Maybe she's just picking a martial skill that she likes, that's why she read it so quickly? That's possible. A cultivator's time and energy are limited. Choosing a suitable book to study carefully might be better than reading 10 books. But even so, the speed at which she opens the books is too fast. If she keeps doing this, impossible. There are barriers on the books. Every time she opens one, she has to use up a portion of her energy. How can she keep doing this? Forget it, let's not worry about this for now. Record down the second book as well. If Elder Emotsang finds out that we missed something, he won't let it go so easily. At this point he suddenly stopped. The two of them exchanged glances again. Given the current situation, if this continued, Elder Emotsang would most likely break down. In the library, Chu Luiwe quickly read through the book in her hands. Then she put it back and shrugged her shoulders in disappointment. Another mystic middle stage. Ever since Elder Emotsang left, she had been staying on the second floor. She randomly picked a bookshelf in the middle and started reading. To her disappointment, she had already browsed through the entire bookshelf, but the best one was only at the middle stage of the profound stage. Most of them were lower stage mystic. Chu Luiwe helplessly walked to another bookshelf. Suddenly she saw a book from the corner of her eye. She focused her eyes on it. Upper yellow stage. Chu Luiwe was shocked. She had thought that the books here were at least mystic stage. She did not expect there to be books of this level. She rubbed her forehead and started to feel that she had been too polite to Elder Emotsang. She continued reading helplessly. This time she really wanted to find a few good books to read and learn some new martial arts techniques. This was because, unlike Xian formations and prescriptions, high-level martial arts techniques were passed down by sections. Under normal circumstances, the martial skills displayed by martial artists could reveal their origins and so on. It was the same for her. There were many high-level martial arts techniques stored in her mind, but they belonged to her in her previous life. Once they were displayed, people would definitely notice that something was wrong. Therefore, although she planned to continue learning these martial arts techniques in secret, she had to choose some new ones at the same time. Although she was a little disappointed, she still read through all the books to avoid wasting them. She had an eidetic memory. Even if she only skimmed through them quickly, she could still remember them clearly. Moreover, because she had once learned high-level martial arts techniques, she could always understand these high-level martial arts techniques very quickly. Chu Luiwe walked along the bookshelf and read one book after another, as if she was constantly throwing books into her mind. One book, another book. Why is she still continuing? The two guards outside the library saw a large patch of starlight gradually lighting up on the grayish-white stone tablet and finally collapsed. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. The stone tablet was connected to the library. Every book in the library corresponded to the corresponding position on the stone tablet. Every time a book was opened, a notification would appear on the stone tablet. In the end, it would turn into a star. In this way, everything that happened in the library would be clear at a glance. However, Elder Emotsang had never seen so many stars on the stone tablet at the same time. In fact, they had even joined together into a single piece. Is there something wrong with the stone tablet? He subconsciously suppressed that absurd conjecture and asked anxiously. However, the answer given by the two of them made his heart sink to the bottom of the valley. Elder Emotsang, this is the record of the books that Chu Luiwe opened after she entered. The man who had been taking notes said bitterly and handed over the booklet. Elder Emotsang glanced at it and saw that the brand new booklet was already half filled. His eyelids twitched violently. Almost uncontrollably, he stiffly took the booklet and flipped through it a few times. Page by page, line by line, everything was clear and clear. The ink on the latest page was not even dry yet. His lips moved, but he didn't know what to say. His hand that was holding the booklet trembled slightly. Elder Emotsang, ever since you left, Chu Luiwe has been reading rapidly. I don't know how she did it, but the words on the stone tablet kept appearing one after another. This is the result of more than 2 hours of... Wait. Elder Emotsang, she opened another book. The man was explaining carefully when he suddenly saw another line of words appear on the stone tablet. He immediately opened his mouth nervously. Elder Emotsang gritted his teeth and turned to look. The light on the stone tablet was especially dazzling. Crush. He suddenly threw the booklet back into the man's arms and shouted angrily, "You're a traitor. Keep writing. I'd like to see how much Chu Luiwe can read." The man hurriedly opened the booklet again and wrote another line with trembling hands. Elder Emotsang stared at the library as if his gaze could pierce through it and cut Chu Luiwe like a knife. Something was wrong. Something was definitely wrong. Apart from the first floor, most of the books on the other floors had a barrier. Chu Luiwe might be able to open a few books, but how could she keep reading like this? Could it be that her force wouldn't run out? Moreover, even if she could open them easily, how could she read so many books in such a short time? Elder Emotsang, don't worry. Chu Luiwe is reading so quickly. She must be picking the books she likes. She must have thrown the books away after a glance. It's just a bluff. She might not have learned anything at all. Elder Emote Song's mood improved a little when he heard this. In fact, he was thinking the same thing. This was the only reasonable explanation. Greed is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant, he said hatefully. Elder Emote Song, you're right. Chu Luiyue is only in her teens. She just won the Qingjiao competition, so it's natural for her to be arrogant. She won't benefit from doing this. She might not be able to pick anything until the end of the competition. As soon as he finished speaking, the stone tablet suddenly emitted a dazzling light. Elder Emote Song and the other elders looked over in shock and exclaimed, "She found an Earth-grade martial arts technique." Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 346. Jingshan Finger, Lower Earth Rank. A line of words appeared clearly on the stone tablet. It was indeed an Earth-rank martial arts technique. The man in charge of recording looked at Elder Emote Song with his mouth agape. According to the rules, the activation of an Earth-rank martial arts technique had to be recorded separately. Furthermore, the dean and all the elders had to be informed. Elder Emote Song's heart was boiling like lava. He didn't know how to vent his anger. All he could do was bellow. "Hurry up and record it." Yes. The man hurriedly took out another book and recorded it down with trembling fingers. The person standing behind Elder Emote Song was even more flustered. He tried his best to minimize his presence, not daring to utter another word. He even held his breath. Everyone could see that Elder Emote Song was on the verge of exploding. Anyone who dared to approach him would be in trouble. Elder Emote Song raised his head abruptly and looked at the second floor of the library. Although there were many books in the library, there were only a few books on Earth-rank martial arts techniques. Moreover, they were all hidden very well. How did Chu Luiyue find it? He wanted to rush in and chase Chu Luiyue out, but he could not. In the end, Chu Luiyue was only reading in there. She did nothing else. Even if she was reading at a breakneck speed, it was not her fault. Therefore, they could only continue to wait. If Chu Luiyue continued to behave like this, they would have to wait until the time was up for her to come out. Elder Emote Song, Chu Luiyue may have unlocked an Earth-rank martial arts technique, but it's not all for nothing. Look, it's been a while, but she hasn't continued to read other books. She must be studying that one. According to the agreement, she can only enter the library to borrow books, but she can't take them out. Therefore, she must be spending all her time on that one book. What do you think? The man in charge of recording said cautiously. Elder Emote Song's face darkened. Of course, he had thought of that, but it was an Earth-rank martial arts technique after all. Now that Chu Luiyue had found him, he felt that he had suffered a great loss. Last year, the student who obtained first place in the Qingjiao competition didn't manage to obtain an Earth-rank martial technique from the other academies. You guys stay here and watch. I'll report this matter to the president. Yes. When Elder Emote Song arrived at Xuanhuan's residence, it was already night time. Light seeped through the window of Xuanhuan's room. Standing outside the door, Elder Emote Song could vaguely hear the voices of several people talking. He knocked on the door and the voices inside stopped. The door was opened. It was Xuanhuan. Under the illumination of the lantern light, his complexion did not look very good. "Emote Song? Why are you here? What is it?" Elder Emote Song looked over his shoulder. There were two other people in the room. They were the people sent by the other two academies to investigate Heng Jingchua and Yang Jianqing. It seemed like the three of them didn't have a good conversation. Elder Emote Song hurriedly replied, "Dean, there is an urgent matter that I need to inform you immediately." Xuanhuan was troubled by these two people and didn't know how to get rid of them. Elder Emote Song's arrival came at the right time. He glanced at Elder Emote Song and asked, "Elder Emote Song? Is it urgent?" Elder Emote Song understood and nodded without hesitation. Xuanhuan turned to look at the two people. "I'm sorry, but it seems like we have to stop here today." The two people knew that Xuanhuan was trying to escape, but they didn't want to expose him, so they got up and left. After they left, Xuanhuan let Elder Emote Song into the room and heaved a sigh of relief. Elder Emote Song asked tentatively, "Dean, it seems like things aren't going well?" Xuanhuan was frustrated. Yang Jianqing and Heng Jingchua are both dead, and there isn't even a corpse left behind. Where am I supposed to find any clues? They've already followed them to the academy, but they still haven't found anything. If they can't find anything, they'll just say that I'm covering for them. Xuanhuan felt that he was being wronged. However, the matter had blown up and everyone knew that they were investigating, so he couldn't just chase them out. He rubbed his temples. Forget it, let's not talk about this anymore. Why are you here? Elder Song's anger had mostly subsided, but it was mostly replaced by uneasiness and anxiety. Before he came, he had been thinking about how to tell the dean about this. Be it the dean or Tai Yen Academy, they had all suffered too much at the hands of Chu Luiyue. This matter would only make things worse. After deliberating for a long time, he finally decided to tell the truth. Chu Luiyue found an earth-grade martial arts technique in the library. Xuanhuan's expression froze. Elder Song had already expected this reaction, so he tried to persuade him. Dean, don't worry, which one did she find? Xuanhuan asked in an urgent tone. Elder Song thought for a moment and said, I think it's Jingshin Finger? This martial arts technique is earth-grade. Crash. Bang. Xuanhuan stood up abruptly, and the chair under him toppled over. He grabbed Elder Song's collar. What did you say? Elder Song recounted the matter with difficulty. Earth-grade. Fortunately, she has stopped studying this book. You, bam. Xuanhuan pushed him out of the library. Elder Song staggered a few steps and crashed into the wall. Xuanhuan's strength was extremely great. This collision almost cracked his shoulder blade, but he didn't dare to show the slightest bit of dissatisfaction. He rubbed his shoulders, only to see that Xuanhuan had already left with large strides. Dean? He was shocked and quickly chased after him. As he chased after Xuanhuan, he recalled Xuanhuan's reaction. The dean seemed to be particularly concerned about this matter. Even if Chu Luiyue had obtained an earth-grade martial arts technique, the dean's reaction should not have been so intense. He frowned and quickly caught up with Xuanhuan. Inside the library, Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged. In front of her, a book floated quietly, flipping page by page. She stared at the words and pictures on the book, imprinting them in her mind. Jingshin Finger. Although it was only earth-grade, it was one of the best martial arts techniques in the library. This was a martial arts technique that was related to finger techniques. A martial arts technique of this level was not something that could be mastered in a short period of time, so Chu Luiyue planned to memorize it first and practice it seriously when she had the time. Earth-grade martial arts techniques were something that ordinary cultivators would need to read hundreds of times before they could begin to understand and thousands of times before they could master it. However, Chu Luiyue was different. She had read many martial arts techniques that were more advanced than this one, so it did not take her much effort to read this one. However, when she had read 1/3 of the book, she suddenly felt that something was wrong. Why was this Jingshin Finger more complicated and obscure than the one she had read before? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Night fell and the sky was completely dark. Xuanhuan rushed over from afar and saw that the surroundings were dark. Only the candlelight on the second floor of the Compendium Pavilion was exceptionally clear. His heart felt as if it had been struck by something. Then he quickened his pace and rushed over. The 2 guards in charge of guarding the library saw his figure and immediately saluted in fear and trepidation. Greetings, Principal. Xuanhuan ignored them and immediately looked at the stone tablet beside him. The stone tablet, which had always been dull and plain, was now lit up with a large amount of starlight. Above the vast expanse of starlight, there was an abnormally bright star. Even if all the other stars were added together, they wouldn't be as dazzling as this one. His vision turned black and he staggered, almost falling to the ground. Principal? What's wrong? The 2 guards saw that something was wrong with Xuanhuan and asked carefully. Xuanhuan held his forehead and lowered his head in silence for a while. Only then did he suppress the emotions in his heart and calm himself down. He turned around and hid the trace of panic in his eyes. How much has Chu Luiyue read now? Principal, don't worry. Ever since Chu Luiyue entered, all the books she has read have been recorded. They are all in these 2 booklets. Please take a look. One of them immediately handed the booklets over. Xuanhuan took the 2 booklets. Obviously, one was a normal record and the other was a special record of Earth-rank martial skills. He quickly skimmed through the 2 books. In fact, he was no longer interested in the normal record book. Even though it was almost filled with words, it was not as shocking as the lone line of words on the second booklet. His face was like a stiff mask. Although there was no expression on his face, it looked inexplicably unnatural. It was so strange that it sent chills down one's spine. Principal, Chu Luiyue read very quickly in the beginning, but ever since she found the Earth-rank martial skill, she hasn't done anything. The other person quickly glanced at Xuanhuan, trying to ease the atmosphere. However, he soon realized that Xuanhuan's face had turned even uglier. Shut up. Xuanhuan couldn't take it anymore and threw the booklet at the person who spoke. That person was terrified and immediately knelt down to apologize. "Principal, please calm down. Please calm down." Seeing this, the other person felt a chill in his heart and quickly knelt down as well. They had never seen the principal so angry in public. The principal seemed to be angrier than expected about this matter. At this moment, Elder Emotsang finally caught up with them. He saw the two people kneeling on the ground begging for mercy and stopped in his tracks. Even though Xuanhuan's back was facing him, it wasn't hard to imagine what kind of expression he had. Just as he was hesitating about what to say, another line of words appeared on the stone tablet. Phaseless manual, middle stage dark rank. Chu Luiyue started again? He immediately said, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and continue writing." The two people who were kneeling on the ground were shocked. They quickly looked up and saw the words on the stone tablet. Their faces all paled in unison. Didn't Chu Luiyue already open an Earth rank martial skill? Why did she start reading other books? Xuanhuan also noticed this and immediately looked over. When he saw that it was only a dark rank martial skill, his tense heart relaxed a little. Elder Emotsang walked up to him. Seeing that his expression was less tense, he advised him in a low voice. Earth rank martial skills are difficult to understand. With Chu Luiyue's current level and strength, it would be difficult for her to read through it. It seems that she has given up. Xuanhuan rubbed his eyebrows. "I hope so." However, in the next moment he suddenly thought of something. His eyes widened and he looked at the second floor. What if Chu Luiyue didn't give up? As if to confirm his guess, another line of words appeared on the stone tablet. It was still a dark rank martial skill. The stars on it were still increasing. In other words, Chu Luiyue was still looking for something. Xuanhuan's heart was filled with fear. Could it be that Chu Luiyue had discovered the secret in the library? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 348. Chu Luiyue seems to be on the second floor. She seems to be more talented as a mystic cultivator and celestial physician. Why isn't she on the third or fourth floor? Elder Emotsang did not notice Xuanhuan's expression and muttered to himself. This made Xuanhuan even more worried. That's right. If she doesn't know something, why is Chu Luiyue only on the second floor and not on the other floors? She started reading other books after finding the Earth rank martial skill. She's obviously looking for something. Xuanhuan could not help but feel anxious. However, he could not rush in and ask Chu Luiyue to stop. The words on the stone tablet continued to appear. Chu Luiyue was still flipping through the books on the second floor at an extraordinary speed. One book, another book. Xuanhuan stood there motionless. The others did not dare to move and could only wait with him. After a long time, Elder Emotsang finally asked, "Dean, Chu Luiyue is going to be in there for a while. You're not going to wait here forever, are you?" Xuanhuan was even more frustrated. Of course he knew. This was what he was most worried about. Previously, he did not expect Chu Luiyue to find the Jingxin finger and even open it to take a look. However, it would be strange if she continued to stay here and would attract more attention. Be careful. Record down all the books that Chu Luiyue borrows. With that, he waved his sleeves and left. Elder Emotsang felt that Xuanhuan's reaction was strange and could not help but look at the library again. What's the dean worried about? After Xuanhuan and Elder Emotsang left, only the other two were left to guard the library. Since things had developed to this point, they did not dare to be careless and continued to guard the library. Time ticked by and soon the moon was high in the sky. However, the lights on the second floor were still on. One of them yawned and could not help but grumble. How long is Chu Luiyue going to read? What time is it? Why isn't she asleep yet? The other person was also affected and became tired. Who wouldn't want to be able to enter the book collection pavilion and read as they wish? If it were you, would you be willing to sleep in there? Besides, she had found an Earth rank martial skill. Who knew how excited she was? In any case, if I were to obtain an Earth grade martial skill, I would read it even if I didn't sleep or rest. That may be the case, but everyone needs to rest, right? She's not tired, but I've written so many words today. I'm tired. The two of them waited for a while longer. Seeing that Chu Luiyue had no intention of stopping, they had no choice but to take turns recording. This isn't. Chu Luiyue quickly browsed through another bookshelf, but she still did not find anything. Ever since she discovered Jingxin finger, she increased her reading speed. He clearly knew that he and the entire country Yao Chen were nothing but ants in Mu Qinghe's eyes. What Mu Qinghe wanted to do and who he wanted to help was his own business. Who was he to say anything? Emperor Jianghu pondered for a moment and said, "That's right. You can't be blamed for this. In the unseen world, everything had its own destiny. However, she can't go on like this. Forget it. I'll go and take a look myself." The Empress was shocked and she couldn't be bothered to wipe her tears. "Your Majesty, I think it's better to let Xinjin calm down for a while, right? You know her personality. The more you force her, the more disobedient she becomes." Emperor Jiawen knitted his brows and stared at the Empress. "Empress, you seem to not want me to see Xinjin. This is weird." In the past, the Empress would always think of ways to invite him over. Of course, he knew that the Empress wanted to show his love for Rongjin, so he would turn a blind eye most of the time. However, today was really weird. "No, I'm just. The Empress retorted without thinking, but she didn't know how to continue. Emperor Jiawen was even more confused. His expression became stern. "Since you're not willing to go, I'll go myself." After saying that, he lifted his foot and walked outside. The Empress was completely flustered. "If I don't stop His Majesty, the consequences will be unimaginable." She followed him without thinking. At the same time, she kept thinking of reasons in her mind. However, Emperor Jiawen seemed determined to go. Just as she was in a terrible fix, a person rushed over from the opposite direction. "Your Majesty. Urgent report." Emperor Jiawen finally stopped and asked with knitted brows, "What urgent report? Why is it so urgent?" The person presented a wooden box with both hands. "Your Majesty, you'll know when you read it yourself." Emperor Jiawen glanced at the wooden box, and his expression turned serious. "This is the box that country Xing Luo's emperor used to communicate with him secretly, so it must contain the other party's secret letter. Why is there news at this time?" The Empress took a look and recognized what it was. She was elated. "This is indeed an urgent report, and His Majesty will definitely deal with this first. No matter how urgent Rongjin's matter is, it can't be more important than the country's matters." As expected, Emperor Jiawen held the wooden box in his hands and glanced at the Empress. "We'll end it here today. I'll go and see Rongjin after I settle this." The Empress couldn't ask for more. "Don't worry, Your Majesty. I'll personally visit Xinjin later and patiently counsel her." Emperor Jiawen felt that something was amiss, but he couldn't care less now. Return to the Imperial Study. Eunuch Min flicked his horsetail whisk. "Set up the Imperial Study." The group of people left in a grandiose manner. The Empress only heaved a sigh of relief when their figures disappeared in front of her. However, she knew that she had to find Rongjin as soon as possible. His Majesty already has suspicions and he will definitely continue. If he finds out that Rongjin is missing, the Empress didn't dare to imagine it. She stood rooted to the ground for a while before deciding to act until the end. "Let's go to the fourth princess." On the other end, Emperor Jiawen returned to the Imperial Study. After confirming that the surroundings were heavily guarded, he finally opened the wooden box. There was a snow-white letter inside and there weren't any words on it. However, he didn't look shocked. Instead, he habitually opened it and picked up the brush at the side. He dipped the brush into the ink slab and drew a line on the paper. Then he drew a second line, a third line, until the end he used ink to cover the entire paper. At first glance, there was only a black blob of ink on the paper. But very quickly white words started to appear under the blob of ink. After about a quarter of an hour, the contents of the scroll were finally revealed. Emperor Jiawen read it, and shock flashed across his eyes. Then, as if he wasn't sure, he moved closer and seriously checked every word again. He stared at the paper and kept quiet for a long time until the words on it completely disappeared. Summon the Crown Prince. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 350. In the blink of an eye, Chu Luiyue had already stayed in Taiyan Academy for 5 days. Apart from her normal work and rest, she spent most of her energy in the library. When the morning of the 6th day arrived, Chu Luiyue put down the book in her hand and let out a long sigh. There's still nothing. In the past few days she had read all the books on the 2nd floor, but she still didn't find anything related to Jingxin finger. This was within her expectations, but she was still a little disappointed. She looked up. The 3rd floor was about Shen formations and the 4th floor was about medicine. Although she didn't really need these books, she could go up and take a look. Thinking of this, she finally went up. When Cheng Han came to the library again, he saw 2 stacks of books beside each of the 2 guards. Without asking, he knew that those were the records of the books Chu Luiyue had read. Qinghan's eyelids twitched. On the first day, he knew that Chu Luiyue was a ruthless person, but he still underestimated how perverted she was. "Ding, you're here?" The 2 of them had been working hard for a few days and had become much more haggard, but when they saw Qinghan, they forced themselves to be alert. How many books did she read? Qinghan controlled his expression and asked. He had been busy dealing with Yang Jianqing and Heng Jingchua these few days, so he didn't have time to come here. He didn't want to open those books at all. The 2 of them looked at each other and felt a little guilty. "Just say it." "Dean, she has finished reading all the books on the 2nd floor these few days," one of them braced himself and said. Qinghan's vision turned black, and his heart seemed to be numb. "Then, what about the Earth-grade martial skills?" She didn't open any new Earth-grade martial skills. She only read the first one. The darkness in front of Qinghan's eyes gradually faded. He swallowed hard. That's good. That's the most important thing. As long as she didn't continue, everything could still be salvaged. "She's on the 3rd floor now?" "Yes." Master." Qinghan was about to say something when he suddenly heard a familiar voice. He turned around in surprise. "Xingqian, why are you here?" Situ Xingqian smiled. "Your disciple has come today to ask for a temporary leave of absence and return to the palace." Qinghan asked curiously, "Why do you want to go back all of a sudden?" Situ Xingqian usually spent most of her time in the academy and would only return to the palace when she had something to do. Situ Xingqian lightly nodded. "Elder Zhongyi is here today." "Elder Zhongyi? So fast?" Qinghan was somewhat surprised. "Yes. Tonight, Imperial Father plans to hold a welcoming banquet for Elder Zhongyi, so this disciple also has to make a trip back." Qinghan knew about this matter. Elder Zhongyi was actually country Xing Luo's empress, Zhong Yushi's brother. He was also Situ Xingqian's uncle. He was an elder of Mingyue Tianshan and had a high status. This was also the reason why Situ Xingqian was sent there when she was young. Mingyue Tianshan was very far from here, and the people there rarely went down the mountain. Hence, it was rare for Elder Zhongyi to come out this time. The reason why he did this was because of Situ Ziyue. Previously, during the Qingjiao competition, he lost terribly to Chu Luiyue and suffered a huge setback both physically and mentally. He could not recover from the setback and his body did not seem to be getting better. Zhong Yushi's heart ached for him, so she invited Elder Zhongyi over. On the one hand, she wanted to see if there were any problems with his body. On the other hand, she wanted to see if she could counsel him. Of course, she also missed her brother, whom she had not seen for many years. Now that Elder Zhongyi was here, they naturally had to treat him with respect. "It's my duty. When you see Elder Zhongyi, send my regards to him," said Qinghan. Situ Xingqian smiled and agreed. Then, her gaze silently swept past the booklets beside the 2 of them, and a hint of obscurity flashed across her eyes. "Are the books recorded in these booklets, the ones Chu Luiyue read?" "Digression. There's not enough time. Let's update first. I'll continue to add a part later." Within that space, the legendary 3-eyed eagle possessed absolute authority and supreme power. "You mean, to freeze the 5th floor?" Chu Luiyue's eyes widened as she asked. "Not bad. Since I am in your body and under your control, as long as you enter my divine domain, you will be able to control everything that I can control." So it was called the divine domain. Chu Luiyue's mind raced. She had to admit that the suggestion of the legendary 3-eyed eagle was very tempting. On one hand, the legendary 3-eyed eagle could use the divine domain to avoid attracting the attention of outsiders. On the other hand, she would have an additional layer of assurance to enter the 5th floor. Now, no one knew what would happen after going up. With the help of the legendary 3-eyed eagle, it would definitely be much better. After all, it was a divine beast. Naturally, it was extraordinary. "What are your conditions?" Chu Luiyue asked straightforwardly. The legendary 3-eyed eagle took the initiative to help. Of course, it was not out of kindness. "I will help you this time and you will let me go." "Impossible." Chu Luiyue rejected directly. The legendary 3-eyed eagle's voice contained a trace of anger. "The heavenly square cauldron is already yours. Continuing to trap me inside will not benefit you at all. I will help you this time and you will let me go. Isn't this just right?" "Who said it won't benefit me?" Chu Luiyue interrupted the legendary 3-eyed eagle with a smile. "Look, now that you can help me go in, isn't that a benefit?" "You? Cunning." The legendary 3-eyed eagle shouted angrily. Chu Luiyue shrugged and did not care at all. It's not the first day you know me. It's impossible to let you go, but we can discuss other things. Other than that, there's nothing else to discuss. Don't be anxious. I haven't said it yet. If I say it, you might be interested. Chu Luiyue crossed his arms and touched his chin. How about? I think of a way to help you recover your physical body? The legendary three-eyed eagle seemed to be shocked. After a while it sneered. You. Just me. Chu Luiyue did not care about the contempt and sarcasm in its words. For an ordinary magical beast, the shattering of the core of essence means that it is completely dead. But as long as the soul of a divine beast is not destroyed, it is not really dead. Although your physical body has been destroyed, your soul is perfectly preserved in the heavenly square cauldron. The reason why you are so eager to leave is actually because of this, right? The legendary three-eyed eagle did not answer. Of course I can't do it now, but it doesn't mean that I can't do it in the future. You are a divine beast, so you naturally know how to rebuild your physical body and let yourself be truly resurrected. As long as you tell me, I can naturally help you. After a while, the legendary three-eyed eagle said, How do I know if you are telling the truth? Other than that, you have no other choice. Chu Luiyue's attitude was very strong. She had the heavenly square cauldron in her hands, which was what the legendary three-eyed eagle was most afraid of. It could not escape. If it was not willing to compromise, it could only continue to suffer the burning pain in the heavenly square cauldron. Therefore she was determined to win this negotiation. After a short stalemate, Chu Luiyue suddenly felt a wave of pressure spreading from the heavenly square cauldron. In the next moment, a black phantom appeared above her head. She looked up. Whoosh! The phantom suddenly spread its wings. A vast power exploded from it. A black feather suddenly drifted from it and flew up to the 5th floor. Chu Luiyue's gaze was fixed on it. She saw that the black feather suddenly stopped in mid-air. Divine realm descend. The legendary three-eyed eagle roared. The next moment, with the black feather as the center, the surrounding space began to solidify. Chu Luiyue could clearly see that the entire space seemed to have solidified. Soon, the huge Xian formation on the 5th floor was also enveloped. One of the stars stopped flickering. A ray of light stopped flowing. Soon, the entire Xian formation was completely solidified. It was like a magnificent and dazzling picture scroll that had been compressed. Chu Luiyue widened her eyes. Blood constantly pounded against her eardrums, and her mind was in a state of roaring. Her heart was almost about to jump out. This was the first time she had seen a divine beast use the divine realm. Although the legendary three-eyed eagle was only a soul now, the divine pressure it displayed still made Chu Luiyue's blood boil. This was the strength of a divine beast. Go. Digression. Yesterday, I fell asleep at 3 o'clock in the morning and was about to go crazy. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from love. Chapter 352. Chu Luiyue took a step forward almost uncontrollably. When her body entered the frozen space, a cold feeling suddenly swept over her. The entire space was like a flowing liquid. Chu Luiyue could clearly feel that when she moved in this space, the resistance she felt was as if she was walking in a quietly flowing stream. She held her breath and couldn't help but look up curiously. That black feather floated quietly in the center, as if it couldn't be moved no matter how hard she tried. Chu Luiyue knew that that was the key to the legendary three-eyed eagle's divine realm. Everything in this space was controlled by that black feather. Chu Luiyue was secretly amazed by the magic of the divine realm. It was rumored that when a cultivator broke through to the 9th rank, they could step into a higher level and also have the power to use the divine realm. Unfortunately, this was just a rumor to her. The ancestor of the Tianling dynasty had once reached the 9th rank, but he left not long after breaking through the shackles and never returned. In the history books of the royal family, there was no content after that. Everything only left the world with countless questions. Chu Luiyue was the second person to have the Tianjing Yuan meridian after that ancestor in the entire Tianling dynasty. Everyone secretly hoped that she could reach the same realm as that ancestor, and even she herself was constantly working hard to cultivate. Unfortunately, she was betrayed and forced to die in the royal family's ancestral hall. She never had the chance again. She sighed softly in her heart, put away her memories and walked up. After walking through the 9 steps, she arrived in front of the Xian formation. She stretched out her hand and touched the starlight on the Xian formation. However, at this time in the legendary three-eyed eagle's divine realm, everything was under its control. Even the power of the Xian formation was almost completely frozen and couldn't be used. She continued to walk up, and her entire body silently passed through the Xian formation. When she turned around, she saw that the Xian formation had returned to its previous state, without any trace of being touched. It had to be said that the legendary three-eyed eagle was really something, Chu Liwe thought, and finally stepped onto the 5th floor. A somewhat familiar fluctuation came from the front. She looked up. Country of Xing Luo Imperial Palace. Situ Ziyue's sleeping quarters. Elder Zhongyi was taking his pulse while Situ Xingqian stood by the side and waited quietly. After a long while, Elder Zhongyi finally loosened his grip and smiled. "All right, your internal injuries are basically healed. They won't affect your cultivation in the future." Only then did Situ Ziyu's tense expression relax a little. "It's all thanks to you. If it wasn't for your help these past few days, I'm afraid that my body would have." "Hey, you can't say that. I remember that Xing Chen's master, xuanhuan, is also a 5th grade celestial physician. Even if I don't come, he will definitely be able to treat you." Elder Zhongyi smiled and waved his hand. Situ Ziyue sighed and said, "To be honest, Elder Zhongyi, it's not that I don't trust Dean xuanhuan, but I trust you more." Sure enough, this flattery made Elder Zhongyi's expression become slightly better. At the side, Situ Xingqian had a faint smile on her lips as if she didn't care about Situ Ziyue's belittling of her mentor. She had been at Mingyue Tianshan for many years, so she naturally understood Elder Zhongyi's character. He had entered Mingyue Tianshan to cultivate a few years ago and rose to become an elder. He had a respectable status and didn't think highly of people like xuanhuan. "Ah, Ziyue, I know your intentions, but Xing Chen is still here. xuanhuan is her mentor after all. Aren't you afraid of hurting her by saying this?" said Elder Zhongyi with a chuckle. "Actually, brother is right. In Xing Chen's eyes, mentor xuanhuan can't be compared to you." Situ Xingqian smiled gently, and her beautiful face was filled with sincerity. Elder Zhongyi took out a folding fan and lightly knocked on Situ Xingqian's forehead. "I haven't seen you in a few years, but you're even better at sweet-talking people." Situ Xingqian smiled. "You're joking again." She glanced outside and said, "It's already late. Elder Zhongyi, why don't you let brother have a good rest first? I'll accompany you back." Elder Zhongyi looked at her thoughtfully, then laughed out loud. "That's right. Okay. Then let's leave first and let Ziyue recover." Situ Ziyue originally wanted to send them off personally, but the duo rejected him. Hence he could only lie back down on the bed. On the other end, Situ Xingqian accompanied Elder Zhongyi and left. After walking for a distance, Elder Zhongyi then asked, "Xing Chen, why are you here? Xingqian, do you have something on your mind?" A helpless and bitter smile surfaced on Situ Xingqian's face. "It's been so many years. Indeed, I can't hide my thoughts from you." Elder Zhongyi placed his hands behind his back, and his voice was much lower and gentler. "You grew up by my side, and I've always treated you as my biological daughter. These few days you've been busy helping Ziyue. I can tell that you have something on your mind and that you're not very happy. If you don't mind, you can tell me." Situ Xingqian kept quiet for a while before softly asking, "Elder Zhongyi, do you know that? Elder Zhongyi, do you know that Brother Rongxiu is engaged to someone?" "What?" Elder Zhongyi suddenly stood still and looked at Situ Xingqian in shock. "When did this happen? To who?" "Just 10 days ago. The girl he's engaged to is Chu Liwe." Elder Zhongyi was confused. "Who is that?" He stayed in Mingyue Tianshan all year round, so he didn't know much about the outside world. This time he came all the way here after leaving the mountain. He had been busy taking care of Situ Ziyue's health for the past few days, so he didn't know about the Qingjiao competition and the rest. Situ Xingqian briefly introduced Chu Liwe and roughly explained what had happened recently. Elder Zhongyi didn't recover his senses for a long time. "You're saying that he took the initiative to propose to that girl? How can that be? He's cold by nature, and he hasn't interacted much with other girls for so many years in Mingyue Tianshan. Why did he?" Elder Zhongyi looked at Situ Xingqian with heartache. "No wonder these past few days you." He had long sensed that Situ Xingqian liked Rongxiu. Now that he saw her sad expression, he thought that it was indeed so. Situ Xingqian forced a smile and said, "You don't have to worry about me, I'm fine. I thought that I could wait for him all these years, but I didn't expect. I can only say that we're not fated." Seeing her like this, Elder Zhongyi thought for a while and said, "Why don't you ask me to teach him? Why don't I ask his master and see if I can cancel this engagement?" Situ Xingqian's heart skipped a beat, but she shook her head. "You can't force anything to be sweet. Why should I be the bad guy? Besides, Country Yao Chen's crown prince, Rong Jin, is coming tomorrow." Elder Zhongyi was confused. Why is he here all of a sudden? Situ Xingqian looked down. Marriage alliance. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 353. Marriage alliance? With whom? Elder Zhongyi was dazed, but he suddenly understood when he saw Situ Xingqian's expression. With you. Situ Xingqian nodded lightly. Father has the same intention. Elder Zhongyi was shocked. Country Yao Chen and country Xing Luo didn't have much interaction before, so why are they suddenly marrying each other? They even have designs on Situ Xingqian. What exactly is your father thinking? Rong Jin isn't outstanding in any way, and from what you said just now, he's narrow-minded and won't amount to anything. He's not worthy of you at all. Even if it's not Rong Xiao, it should be another young talent. How can it be Rong Jin? Situ Xingqian didn't seem to care as she smiled. He's country Yao Chen's crown prince after all, and he's not completely useless to be able to come this far. You might have underestimated him. Besides, even though this matter hasn't happened yet, father is very insistent, so he must have his reasons. What do you think? Anyway, I don't think this marriage alliance will work. Elder Zhongyi sneered. If it really happens, won't you have to stay in country Yao Chen in the future? Since Rong Jin has done so many ridiculous things, it means that he can't take on big responsibilities. Even though he's still the crown prince, he can't stay in this position for long. Xingqian, don't worry. When that kid comes tomorrow, I'll definitely stop this marriage. With me around, your father won't dare to force you. Situ Xingqian's eyes sparkled. Elder Zhongyi, I know that you're doing this for my own good, but I've said so much to you today because I hope that you'll agree to this marriage tomorrow. What? You really want to marry Rong Jin? Elder Zhongyi looked at Situ Xingqian in disbelief. Why you can't purposely marry Rong Xiao because he wants to marry someone else, right? Situ Xingqian chuckled. You're thinking too much. Why would I do such a thing? I really agree to this marriage. You also know that not many people know about this before. If I suddenly say it out loud, many people will definitely object to it. But if you can express your agreement tomorrow, then the others won't say anything. Elder Zhongyi had an extremely high status in country Xing Luo. As long as he spoke, this matter would definitely go smoothly. Xingqian, have you really thought this through? Yes. Elder Zhongyi looked at Situ Xingqian's determined expression and couldn't help but sigh. All right. Since that's the case, I'll agree to it. Situ Xingqian's smile deepened. Many thanks, Elder Zhongyi. Country Yao Chen Imperial Palace. It was already late at night, but the Empress and Rong Jin were still discussing something in the room. You're going to Xing Luo tomorrow. This marriage must succeed. The Empress looked very serious. This is your best chance. If you miss it, who knows how long you'll have to wait. Rong Jin nodded. I know. Don't worry, I've already contacted Situ Xingqian. There won't be any problems with this. The Empress relaxed a little and leaned back in her chair with a satisfied smile on her face. That's good. I asked you to think of a way to improve your relationship with her. I didn't expect it to go so smoothly. Rong Jin also laughed and looked rather smug. Everyone says that Situ Xingqian is the brightest pearl in Xing Luo. Ever since she became of marriageable age, countless people have proposed to her, but she didn't agree. I originally thought that she would be hard to get close to, but I didn't expect her to. Perhaps she was interested in you before. The Empress sized Rong Jin up and smiled. To a woman, love is the most unpredictable thing. Everyone said that Situ Xingqian had high standards, but when she met someone like Rong Jin, it was easy for her to fall in love with him. Rong Jin originally didn't have any special feelings for Situ Xingqian, but when such an outstanding beauty liked him in all aspects, his ego was greatly satisfied. It was precisely because of this that his attitude toward this marriage changed drastically. Previously, he was a little unwilling, but now that he thought about how he could see Situ Xingqian tomorrow and settle the marriage, he had an inexplicable sense of anticipation. Anyway, you did a good job in this matter. When you arrive, try to settle this matter as soon as possible. As long as you settle the marriage, your position as the crown prince will be stable. The Empress sighed. This way, even if your father finds out about Zhen Zhen, we'll have a trump card. Rong Zhen asked worriedly, haven't you found her? Haven't you found her? There's no news at all. It's as if she completely disappeared from the face of the earth. If it weren't for the lack of movement in the palace, she would have thought that Rong Zhen was dead. However, she clearly wasn't. Someone secretly hid Rong Zhen somewhere, and they couldn't find her after searching for so long. The Empress didn't know how she spent the past few days in fear. The last time, Emperor Jiawen mentioned that he wanted to visit Rongzhen, but he suddenly received a letter from Xing Luo, so he was delayed. Later on, she guessed that the contents of the letter were related to the marriage alliance. This was because Emperor Jiawen removed Rong Jin's house arrest not long after, and his attitude toward Rong Jin improved significantly. You're leaving tomorrow. Because of this, your father even specially asked Zhenzhen to send you off, but I stopped him. Your father is busy with you and Situ Xingqian, so he can't care about Zhenzhen for now. However, he already has suspicions and this matter can't be hidden for long. As long as you can settle the marriage alliance as soon as possible, your father will weigh the pros and cons and definitely won't do anything to us. Rong Jin nodded. I understand. Princely Mansion. Rong Xiao sat in the study room and was writing something. Yan Qing and Umo waited at the side. The octagonal glazed lamp's light shone on Rong Xiao's jade-like face. He looked down and his long eyelashes cast a faint shadow under his eyes. It was like a wisp of smoke floating across the bright moonlight, cold and noble. After some time he finally stopped writing. Yan Qing and Umo were both energized as they looked up. Rong Xiao picked up the thing he wrote and read it again before placing it on a clear, square jade stone in front of him. The moment the two came into contact, the square jade stone suddenly emitted a faint phosphorescent light. It turned out that the square jade stone was sunken in, and there was an extremely shallow pool of water inside. That thing melted when it touched the water, and it turned into rays of light on the water surface. After a while, the light disappeared and the water surface returned to normal. It also gradually seeped into the jade stone and disappeared. At first glance, it seemed to be an extremely normal jade stone, and there was nothing special about it. Rong Xiao pushed that thing forward and lightly said, "Send it back." "Send this back." Yan Qing stepped forward and carefully picked that thing up. But at this point he saw a golden light suddenly appear on Rong Xiao's long and white fingertips. He said in shock, "Master, you're in charge." Master. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 354. Rong Xiao glanced at his fingertips, his gaze cold. In the next moment, that cluster of golden light instantly dissipated. The entire process was extremely fast. If not for Yan Qing and Umo standing nearby, they would have thought that what they saw just now was just an illusion. Rong Xiao leaned back in his chair, one hand supporting his forehead. There was a faint trace of fatigue between his eyebrows. You may leave. After the initial shock, Yan Qing's expression became very serious. Master, in your current state, I'm afraid that you have to make a trip back as soon as possible. He had only left for a few days to retrieve this item, but his master had already developed to this point. Thinking about it carefully, ever since he started interacting with Chu Luiyue, his master had never returned. Rong Xiao closed his eyes and didn't say anything, but his meaning was very clear. Master. Yan Qing wanted to persuade him again, but Umo couldn't help but cough, desperately signaling to Yan Qing with his eyes. Yan Qing looked back. Seeing him like this, he hesitated for a moment before respectfully retreating. Master, don't worry. I'll do it right away. With that he left with the strange jade. Umo hurriedly said, It's already very late. Master, you should rest. I'll also take my leave first. Rong Xiao waved his hand. Umo hurriedly followed Yan Qing out. As soon as Umo walked out, he saw Yan Qing waiting for him outside. The two of them exchanged glances and didn't say anything. They just left together. The two of them walked side by side for quite a distance. When they were far away from Rong Xiao's study, Yan Qing finally spoke with a cold face. Today's situation is definitely not the first time. Did you know about it before? Umo could only nod with a bitter face. A similar situation happened a few days ago. Then why didn't you persuade him? Don't you know how serious this matter is? If I didn't see it today, when would you have told me? Yan Qing was usually very calm and indifferent. She rarely had any mood swings, let alone get angry. His reaction at this moment showed how big of an impact this matter had on him. Umo shivered unconsciously, feeling inexplicably guilty. I did try to persuade him. But look at Master, do you think I can persuade him? Yan Qing's face was still cold. Then you should have told me earlier. What's the use of telling you? Umo fiercely rubbed his face. Do you think that Master will listen to what you say? Yan Qing fell silent. They had followed Master for many years and understood Master's character the best. Since he refused to go back now, it was useless for anyone to say anything. It seems that the forceful summoning by Master, had a huge impact. Yanqing murmured. If it wasn't for that incident, Master would have been able to hold on for a long time. But now, didn't Master ask you to retrieve this item because he's determined not to go back for a while? Umo patted his shoulder. Don't worry too much. Master knows what he's doing. Yanqing kept quiet for a while before asking, did Master say when he's planning to go back? Umo looked troubled. It seems like he's planning to wait until Mu Qinghe leaves. I don't know what's wrong with this Mu Qinghe recently. He's been staying in the Imperial City, doing nothing and refusing to leave. No one knew what else he wanted to do, but no one dared to ask. Even Emperor Jiawen didn't dare to disturb him for no reason, let alone others. I think you should send this item back first. Don't delay the important matters. If anything happens to Master, I'm here. Don't worry. I'll inform you immediately if anything happens. Yanqing finally gave up after Umo repeatedly assured him and left with the jade. Umo looked at his departing back view, and a tinge of guilt appeared in his eyes. If Yanqing knew that Master's situation was worse than what he saw today, how would he feel? Now I can only hope that Mu Qinghe leaves as soon as possible. And that person? Hurry back. In the library. Chu Liwei looked at the empty 5th floor in front of her and knitted her brows. There's actually nothing here. Not to mention books, there's not even a bookshelf here. At a glance, the 4 white walls were empty. Chu Liwei found it increasingly strange. That's not right. In any academy, there was no way that a place like the library pavilion would leave an entire floor devoid of content. She didn't give up as she walked forward and started to carefully check everything here. But no matter how hard she searched, she didn't find anything. She even knocked on the 4 walls, but it was still the same. After searching one round, she finally stopped. She held her chin with one hand and fell into deep thought. Previously, when she was preparing to leave on the 4th floor, she did feel 3 waves. Although each of the 3 waves was smaller than the previous one, there was no doubt that they were there. Then where did they come from? Chu Liwei originally thought that even if there weren't as many books here as there were on the other floors, there should be something special. But she didn't expect that there was nothing here. Or perhaps she just hadn't found it yet. Chu Liwei thought for a long time, but still couldn't find an answer. She simply sat on the ground and crossed her legs. Anyway, there was still 1 day left. She could wait here and see if the waves would appear again. Time slowly passed. But Chu Liwei didn't see any signs of movement. Bored to death, she decided to silently recite the Jingxin finger again. Because when she came in, both parties had already agreed that she could borrow any book in the library, but every book had to be returned to its original position after reading it. Moreover, the books on each floor were not allowed to be taken to other floors. Therefore, Chu Liwei could only rely on her own memory to recite the Jingxin finger. She held her breath and focused. In her mind, the Jingxin finger appeared clearly. Chu Liwei started to recall the first move and tried to cultivate it. The force in her body surged towards her dantian. When it condensed into a ball, she controlled a strand of force and poured it into her right index finger. But before that strand of force reached her right index finger, it had already dissipated into the Yuan meridian. Chu Liwei readjusted, mobilized an even smaller amount of force and tried again. It was still a failure. But Chu Liwei wasn't discouraged. She continued to try again and again. The first step now was to control the force so that it could flow along the Yuan meridian from her dantian all the way to her right index finger. Just this point alone was very difficult. Because this required the cultivator to have a sufficiently strong Yuan meridian, it also required the cultivator to have exquisite control over the force. Chu Liwei only wanted to try it first, but the more she tried, the more she realized that it was more difficult than she had imagined. Her competitive spirit was aroused. She actually tried it over 1,000 times. When the sun shone on the next morning, Chu Liwei's right index finger was finally covered in a layer of faint silver. Before she could exclaim in surprise, she suddenly felt that her surroundings were bright. She subconsciously squinted her eyes and looked around. Then her eyes suddenly widened. Countless silver characters appeared on the walls around her. They were shining brightly. Digression, I'm sorry, I can't stand it anymore. Tomorrow I'll land at 6. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 355. Chu Liwei looked at the scene in front of her in shock. The 5th floor was indeed not empty. To think that such a shocking secret was hidden in all directions. Chu Liwei subconsciously wanted to walk forward. Suddenly, countless rays of light flew from all directions and gradually condensed in front of her. In a moment, 3 large silver words appeared in the air in front of her. Awakening God Technique. The 3 words were like flowing water, swaying gently and shining brilliantly, but with an unparalleled pressure. Chuliwa was shocked. This aura was very similar to Awakening God Finger, but it was several times stronger than Awakening God Finger. And this pressure was even more vast and boundless. Chuliwa's heart was beating wildly, as if it was being pulled by some mysterious force. She slowly stretched out her finger and gently tapped on the 3 large words. It was like a stone being thrown into a calm lake. The void in front of her suddenly rippled, with the 3 words as the center, spreading out in all directions. The ripples spread to the surrounding walls. Buzz. The subtle ripples came again. Chuliwa looked over. The words that appeared on the surrounding walls seemed to be affected as well. Like the stars in the dark night, they flickered and disappeared. Her heart suddenly trembled. This ripple was exactly the same as the one she felt on the 4th floor. In the next moment, Chuliwa suddenly felt an inexplicable feeling coming from her fingertips, all the way to the bottom of her heart. In an instant, she seemed to have an indescribable sense of connection with the entire space. She seemed to have sensed something, looked up to the left and carefully identified the words on the wall. Soon, she realized that the content on the wall was exactly the same as the Awakening God Finger she saw earlier. She immediately looked at the second wall beside her. Sure enough, the content on the wall was the same as the Awakening God Finger. But as she looked at it, Chuliwa realized that something was not right. The thing on the second wall had actually transformed the Awakening God Finger into a palm technique. And its power had also become stronger. Chuliwa closed his eyes and looked at it seriously again. He could basically confirm that the level of this palm technique was at the middle stage of the Earth stage. An absurd and bold idea suddenly appeared in Chuliwa's mind. She couldn't wait to look at the 3rd wall. At this point he changed from a palm technique to a fist technique. More importantly, once this fist art was mastered, it was very likely that it would reach the upper level of the Earth rank. Chuliwa took a deep breath and tried his best to suppress his wildly beating heart as he looked at the last wall. Just like the 3 walls in front of him, there was also some glowing writing on it. However, after staring at it for a while, Chuliwa realized that he couldn't understand what it was. None of the words could be read smoothly and it looked very chaotic. Chuliwa looked at it for a long time, but still couldn't figure it out. However, this only made her even more excited. It was rumored that heaven-rank martial skills were different from ordinary martial skills that were recorded with pen and ink. The heaven-rank martial skills in this world were all obtained by powerful people who comprehended the heavenly Tao. If one wanted to cultivate a heaven-rank martial skill, they couldn't use their eyes to see it. Instead, they had to use their force to sense it. If a cultivator's realm wasn't enough, they wouldn't be able to touch it or even understand it. Just like this moment, Chuliwa had seen a heaven-rank martial skill once in her previous life, and it was on the day of her coming-of-age ceremony. It was left behind by the ancestors of the Tianling dynasty and had always been treasured by the royal family. Originally, after she ascended the throne, she could officially start trying to cultivate the heaven-rank martial skill, but she couldn't wait until that day. However, even though it had been a long time, she still clearly remembered the scene when she saw the heaven-rank martial skill. She remembered everything that had happened back then clearly. She could confirm that the content on the last wall was indeed a heaven-rank martial skill. Chuliwa's hands clenched into fists. The blood in her body seemed to be boiling, making her entire body seem to be burning. In fact, when she saw the content on the second wall, she guessed that the level of these things might be gradually increasing. The result was indeed so. There was even a heaven-rank martial skill. After the shock, Chuliwa calmed down and started to think. No wonder Elder Mo Tsang said that only the dean could enter the 5th level. There was such a shocking secret hidden here. Once people knew about it, it would attract countless powerful cultivators to fight for it. At that time, Taiyan Academy would definitely not be able to hold on. Even the entire country Xingluo would be in trouble. However, Chuliwa couldn't figure out why such a shocking existence would appear in this small country Xingluo's Taiyan Academy. She even suspected that the dean of Taiyan Academy didn't know what this thing was. If xuanhuan knew, why didn't he choose to cultivate it? Even if he didn't understand the heaven-rank martial skill now, the finger technique, fist technique, and palm technique in front of it were extremely powerful. If he didn't know, you owe me again. The legendary three-eyed eagle's voice suddenly sounded. Chuliwa was stunned for a moment before she reacted. That's right. The heaven-rank martial skills pressure was extremely strong. If it wasn't in the legendary three-eyed eagle's god territory, it would have caused a huge commotion. From this point of view, The legendary three-eyed eagle had indeed helped her a lot. Okay, I'll remember it for now. Chu Luiyue didn't mind and admitted it straightforwardly. The legendary three-eyed eagle was silent for a moment before it said coldly, "You're quite lucky." Chu Luiyue's lips curled up. Of course. How could it be just not bad? It was simply heaven-defying. This was a heaven-rank martial skill. Some people might not even see it in their entire lives. She had only come to the library to read, and she actually had such a fortuitous opportunity. Even Chu Luiyue couldn't help but sigh. This trip was really worth it. However, there was a very troublesome problem now. She didn't seem to have a way to take this god-stunning technique away. She had already memorized the god-stunning finger. The god-stunning palm and god-stunning fist were much more complicated, but she could completely memorize them as long as she read more. The most troublesome thing was the thing on the last wall. She realized that she couldn't remember the contents at all. The heaven-rank martial skill contained an extremely strong pressure. According to her current realm and strength, she couldn't comprehend it at all. Every time she finished reading it, it was as if there was a hand that forcefully erased those things from her mind. Moreover, after Chu Luiyue tried a few times, she felt a little tired. She knew that this was the result of her forceful actions, so she didn't continue. She turned her gaze back to the three big words in front of her. God-stunning technique, she muttered softly. She had to leave here today. She had to think of a way as soon as possible. She really couldn't give up on the heaven-rank martial skill in front of her. She looked at her hand and suddenly had a question. How did she summon this god-stunning technique just now? Suddenly, there was a fluctuation in her dantian. Chu Luiyue was slightly shocked. A water droplet appeared on her fingertip. That water droplet quickly changed, and then turned into a piece of transparent incomplete paper. The contents on the last wall were clearly reflected on it. Digression: a wave of action was about to come. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 356. The stars on the transparent remnant page shone brightly, and it actually flickered along with the words on the wall. Then that thing flew back to Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue looked over, and when she saw what was on it, she immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. The content on the transparent remnant page was exactly the same as on the last wall. Every character, even every glimmer, was exactly the same. The size of this transparent remnant page was probably not even 1% of the wall, but when Chu Luiyue looked at it, for some reason she felt that those characters were reflected on the transparent remnant page, and they were still clearly visible and even seemed a little small and empty. It was just a transparent remnant page, but Chu Luiyue felt that it seemed to contain a huge space that could accommodate everything. Chu Luiyue stretched out her hand, and the transparent remnant page flew back into her hand. She lowered her eyes and looked at it carefully. She saw that every character was clearly written on it. She opened her mouth but was so shocked that she couldn't say a word. This transparent remnant page was actually a complete copy of the heaven tier martial skill on the last wall. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, Chu Luiyue wouldn't have believed what was happening. A heaven tier martial skill was such a powerful and sacred existence, yet it was so easily copied? Chu Luiyue closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and opened them again. Everything in front of her had not disappeared. She couldn't help but look at the wall again, but there was no change. In the next moment, her palm turned cold, and the remnant page turned back into a water droplet and returned to her dantian. Then Chu Luiyue clearly felt that there was something extra in her mind. It was a heaven tier martial skill. Even though she was still unable to comprehend it, it truly existed in her body. This can be done? Chu Luiyue couldn't help but mutter. She only knew that the water droplet in her dantian contained an extremely vast power, and every time she encountered danger, it could save her life. But who would have thought that it could actually help her copy a heaven tier martial skill? No, it should be said that a heaven tier martial skill could actually be copied. That's not a copy. That's the power of the heavenly Tao that it contains forcefully taken away. The three-eyed eagle suddenly opened its mouth. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment. What? The three-eyed eagle said slowly, "Take a look again." Chu Luiyue looked at the last wall again. There's nothing changed. Before she could finish her sentence, Chu Luiyue suddenly felt that something was amiss. The characters on it didn't change, but the overall feeling was indeed different. It was as if it had lost the indescribable sense of holiness and vastness from before. All that was left was a bunch of messy characters. The three large silver words floating in front of her gradually dissipated and finally disappeared without a trace. The reason why it is the heaven tier martial skill, the heavenly Tao. Now that this power has been taken away by you, the things left here have become completely useless. Without the guidance of the heavenly Tao, other cultivators won't be able to comprehend it even if they continue to look at it for 100 years. Chu Luiyue was enlightened. I see. In that case, the so-called power of the heavenly Tao is equivalent to the soul of a heaven-tier martial skill? Without this, the heaven-tier martial skill is equivalent to being dead? Looks like you're not that stupid. The three-eyed eagle said coldly. Chu Luiyue didn't care about the three-eyed eagle's mockery. She was very tactful that it could tell her this. After pondering for a moment, she continued to ask, if I leave now and take the things with me, will others notice the abnormality here? The three-eyed eagle sneered with undisguised arrogance. Of course. In my god realm, everything is under my control. Even if you leave, no one will notice any changes here. Unless, he's an expert who can comprehend a heaven-tier martial skill. Chu Luiyue felt slightly relieved. There shouldn't be such an existence in Tai Yen Academy. She nodded, then let's go now. When Chu Luiyue came out of the library, it was almost noon. The two people in charge of guarding the door had lost a lot of weight after this period of torment. They looked very haggard. Therefore, when they saw Chu Luiyue walking out, their mouths were wide open in shock. Chu, Chu, Chu. The two of them stuttered for a long time and only pointed at Chu Luiyue with trembling fingers. Chu Luiyue looked up at the blue sky and exhaled softly. Then she said to the two of them, I came out early. The two of them were shocked and couldn't believe it. Really? Chu Luiyue could have stayed in there for a month. Now it's only been 10 days and she's planning to end it? Chu Luiyue tilted her head and swept her gaze across the pile of books beside the two of them. Are these the books that record the books I've read? The two of them instinctively nodded. When they saw Chu Luiyue's seemingly smiling face, they suddenly recovered their senses and lowered their heads in embarrassment. They knew very well how many books Chu Luiyue had read. She had cleaned out the entire second floor and read quite a few books on the third and fourth floors. Even if she leaves now, she's read enough. If she really stays for a month, she'll probably destroy the entire library. Why? I'll go get Elder Emotsong now. One of them hurriedly left. Chu Luiyue didn't mind and waited at the same spot. 10 days have passed. I wonder what's the situation on Mu Qinghe's side. Country Yaoqin Imperial City Palace. Emperor Zhouwen's face was terrifyingly dark as he stared at the Empress in front of him. I'll ask you again. Where's Rongzhen? The Empress was very anxious and anxiously explained. Your Majesty, let me explain. Hua. Emperor Zhouwen suddenly swept the things on the table beside him to the floor and angrily said, I'm asking you, where's Rongzhen now? The Empress was so frightened that she shivered. Her legs turned to jelly, and she knelt on the floor as tears streamed down her face. Your Majesty, I don't know where Rongzhen is. Emperor Zhouwen was so angry that his face turned green. Because of country Xing Luo's matters, he didn't have the time to care about Rongzhen. After Rongjin left with the others, he then remembered that he hadn't seen Rongzhen for quite some time. Thinking that Rongzhen didn't come out on such an important day, Emperor Zhouwen felt that she was a little insensible. Hence, he personally went to her bedroom to teach her a lesson. The Empress stopped him a few times, which made him even more suspicious. He directly ordered someone to break open the bedroom door. However, when he came in, he realized that Rongzhen wasn't here. He then realized that something was amiss and started to interrogate the Empress. At this point, Eunuch Min suddenly walked in from outside the door and whispered something into Emperor Zhouwen's ear. Emperor Zhouwen was shocked and furious as he harshly kicked the Empress's heart. Si Huijing. You've got guts. How dare you raise a secret guard? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. What surprised everyone was that Elder Zhong Yi, who had just returned from Mingyue Tianshan, actually praised Rongjin. With him speaking, nobody dared to object. Thus, the matter of the marriage was successfully completed. Rongjin was really proud of being surrounded by the crowd. Looking at those people's jealous and envious gazes, he felt that he finally had an outlet to vent everything that he had suffered previously. With a face full of smiles, he toasted Situ Xingqian, who was sitting not far away. Situ Xingqian smiled and nodded gently, looking dignified and gentle. Rongjin was elated. What's mine will eventually belong to me. Suddenly, his expression changed and he smiled at the surrounding people. I'm a little dizzy. I'll go out to take a breather. The crowd thought that he wanted to avoid the wine, so they laughed and didn't stop him. Rongjin hurriedly left the palace. Situ Xingqian squinted her eyes, stood up, and walked out of the palace. Rong Jin walked to a secluded corner and took out a bell from his arms. At this point the bell was vibrating and the sound was very soft. However, Rong Jin's face turned even uglier. Before he left, he especially left this twin bell behind. If Rong Jin's matter was exposed, Mother would shake it. Did something happen on Mother's side? Your Highness. A gentle voice sounded. Digression, I'm so sleepy. I drank some coffee and it really refreshed me. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. That day, I was planning to return to the inn to pack my things when I saw Chu Luiyue and the fourth princess leaving together. There was an old man following behind them. I was quite far away so I couldn't see who he was. As for where they went, I'm not sure either. What's wrong? Is this important? Rong Jin's body trembled slightly, and he didn't say anything for a long time. The old man following them is most likely Si Meng. This means that Rong Jin's disappearance really has something to do with Chu Luiyue. Previously his mother had mentioned it, but he did not think much of it. He only thought that his mother did not like Chu Luiyue, so she purposely dragged her into this. Thinking about it now, perhaps Mother was right. Rong Jin and Chu Luiyue did have a conflict between them. Since Si Meng was also there, it could be confirmed that Rong Jin requested to leave the palace. It was very likely that she went to look for Chu Luiyue first. According to her personality, she would definitely do such a thing. However, he did not expect that Chu Luiyue would be unharmed, and Rong Jin would disappear for no reason. There seemed to be a ball of fire burning crazily in his heart. Your Highness? Your Highness? Situ Xingqian called him twice with a worried look on her face. Rong Jin suddenly had an idea. Is Chu Luiyue still at Taiyan Academy? That's right. Why are you suddenly looking for her? Rong Jin was silent for a moment before he suddenly said, Xingqian, can I ask you for a favor? Situ Xingqian smiled slowly and gently said, Your Highness. Please go ahead. Elder Emotsang quickly arrived at the library. When he saw Chu Luiyue standing there, his heart skipped a beat. He then believed that Chu Luiyue was really planning to leave. When he first heard the news, he was still in disbelief. All the geniuses who won first place in the Qingjiao competition would make full use of the 1-month time limit. After all, it was a rare opportunity. However, Chu Luiyue only took 10 days. Elder Emotsang was surprised and elated. However, when he saw the stacks of books, his good mood was instantly shrouded in a layer of darkness. Even if Chu Luiyue only stayed here for 10 days, he read more than others could finish in a few months. Now, Elder Emotsang could only hope that Chu Luiyue only opened those books and did not read them in detail. Chu Luiyue, have you really decided to leave? Asked Elder Emotsang solemnly with one hand behind his back. Chu Luiyue smiled. Didn't you wish for this to happen a long time ago? Elder Emotsang snorted. Don't be too smug. Be careful not to bite off more than you can chew. Chu Luiyue did not take it to heart and smiled. Don't worry, Elder Emotsang. I understand that. Elder Emotsang sized Chu Luiyue up and thought to himself, for some reason Chu Luiyue seems to be in a good mood today. Thinking about it carefully, anyone who got the chance to borrow so many books for free and even unlocked an Earth Stage Warrior Technique book would be overjoyed. On his way here, he had already confirmed that Chu Luiyue did not find any other Earth Stage Warrior Technique books after that day. This was considered a blessing in disguise. Since you've made up your mind, then I'll bring you to the entrance of the academy. Taiyan Academy had a strict barrier. If Chu Luiyue wanted to leave, she needed Elder Emotsang's permission. Chu Luiyue nodded. Then I'll have to trouble you, Elder Emotsang. Elder Emotsang sneered in his heart. He did not fall for it and waved his sleeves. Let's go. Chu Luiyue did not mind Elder Emotsang's attitude and followed after him. The two of them walked towards the entrance of the academy one after another. Along the way, Elder Emotsang's face was cold and he did not say a word. Chu Luiyue was tactful and did not say anything. Anyway, she had already gotten what she wanted the most. These cold faces and sarcastic remarks were nothing to her. Elder Emotsang extended his hand and was about to open the barrier. Chu Luiyue stood at the side and waited quietly. Suddenly, a deep and cold voice sounded. You're not allowed to leave. Digression. Today, Xiaoxiang seemed to have delayed the mobile phone user's browsing experience again. A better reading experience came from the Love Network. Chapter 359. Upon hearing this voice, a cold glint flashed across Chu Luiyue's eyes. She then calmed herself down and looked back calmly. The person who spoke was Xuanhuan. Director? Why are you here? Elder Emote Song was shocked. Xuanhuan had been busy investigating Yang Jianqing and Heng Jingchua, so he hadn't shown up for a few days. He didn't expect to suddenly appear now. You said that you're not letting her go. Are you referring to Chu Luiyue? Xuanhuan strode over with a serious face. That's right. Elder Emote Song was stunned. For a moment he was at a loss. Didn't the director want Chu Luiyue to leave as soon as possible? Now that she's finally leaving, why isn't he letting her go? Director, what are you? Xuanhuan stood 3 steps away from Chu Luiyue with a cold expression. Chu Luiyue, you know why I'm stopping you, right? Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. Did he find out about the god-stunning technique? That shouldn't be the case. Xuanhuan shouldn't be able to find out about this given his abilities. A polite smile appeared on her calm face. Director Xuanhuan, I don't know what you're talking about. You don't know? Xuanhuan sneered. No one knows better than you what you've done. Rongjin will be here soon. You should save your excuses for him. Rongjin? Chu Luiyue secretly heaved a sigh of relief. It seems like it's not because of the god-stunning technique. But, what does this have to do with Rongjin? She knitted her brows slightly. From Xuanhuan's point of view, Chu Luiyue's expression clearly showed her guilt and fear after being exposed. Seeing Xuanhuan's gloating gaze, Chu Luiyue suddenly remembered something. If I remember correctly, Rongjin should be in country Xingluo by now to marry Situ Xingqian. Just as she was thinking about this, she heard footsteps behind her. Xuanhuan looked over and a long-awaited smile appeared on his face. Chu Luiyue turned around. Who else could it be other than Rongjin who was walking in from the door? His expression was anxious and his footsteps were hurried. It was obvious that he had rushed over from somewhere. The two of them looked at each other for a moment. Rongjin suddenly stopped in his tracks. Along the way he had been thinking about how to interrogate Chu Luiyue when he saw her, but now that he saw her in person, his mind suddenly went blank. In his heart, he was actually unwilling to confront Chu Luiyue face to face, but Chu Luiyue saw the struggle that flashed across Rongjin's eyes and he narrowed his eyes. Then she saw Situ Xingqian behind Rongjin. She was 1 step behind Rongjin and seemed to have accompanied him here. When she looked up and saw Chu Luiyue, she was also shocked. Obviously, she did not expect to bump into her here. However, she quickly adjusted her expression. She nonchalantly shifted her gaze away and walked to Rongjin's side. Your Highness, if you have something to say, we can talk it out. Don't be angry. Chu Luiyue raised her brows high. Since when did Situ Xingqian and Rongjin become so close? They seem to have only met a few times, right? Rongjin glanced at Situ Xingqian and nodded. Don't worry. I know what to do. Chu Luiyue crossed her arms and was in deep thought. I just entered the library to read for a few days, but many things seem to have happened outside. Director Xuanhuan, thank you for stopping her for me. Rongjin cupped his fists and bowed to Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan waved his hands. It's just a small matter, it's not worth mentioning. Xingqian told me that I must help you, so I naturally won't reject it. Rongjin looked at Situ Xingqian gratefully. Thank you. Don't delay His Highness's work, said Situ Xingqian gently. Chu Luiyue finally couldn't help but laugh out loud. If she hadn't personally seen the cloud pattern on Situ Xingqian's clothes and how she looked when she faced Rongxiu, she would have really thought that Situ Xingqian had a crush on Rongjin. Other things aside, her acting skills are really good. Upon hearing this laugh, Rongjin instinctively felt that Chu Luiyue was mocking him, and his face couldn't help but change. Chu Luiyue, what are you laughing at? Chu Luiyue shrugged his shoulders. Nothing. Your Highness, why are you looking for me? Just tell me. Why do you have to make such a big fuss? Rongjin paused and asked in a low voice, is it Rongjin's fault? Is Rongjin's matter related to you? Chu Luiyue's eyes sparkled. What? Upon seeing her reaction, Rongjin's heart wavered. She really doesn't seem to know. However, Situ Xingqian clearly said that she saw Chu Luiyue and Rongjin together. I'm asking you, did you do something to Rongjin previously? A thought flashed across Chu Luiyue's mind. I did this very secretly, so logically speaking, nobody should have noticed. However, the Empress might know that it was me. After all, the Empress most likely knows what Rongjin did previously. It seems very normal for her to tell Rongjin this guess. But, why does Rongjin look like he's very certain about this matter? Chu Luiyue shook his head. Your Highness, I really don't know what you're asking. Shouldn't the 4th princess be in country Yao Chen's palace now? Why are you finding trouble with me? Rongjin finally couldn't hold it in as he stepped forward and suppressed his voice. Don't pretend anymore. You must be behind Rong Zhen's disappearance. Someone saw her with you before she went missing. Chu Liwei blinked, and his clear eyes were enveloped in a faint layer of confusion. The fourth princess went missing? When did this happen? Upon seeing her expression, Rong Jin suddenly hesitated. Does Chu Liwei really not know? Chu Liue's gaze turned slightly, and he looked at Situ Xingqian with interest. She thought that she knew how Rong Jin found out. Eldest Princess Situ, may I ask, was it you who told His Highness the Crown Prince that you saw me with the fourth princess? Situ Xingqian bit her lips and knitted her brows, looking very pitiful. I did see you. I'm sorry, I didn't know that the fourth princess went missing. I just said it unintentionally when His Highness asked. I didn't do it on purpose. Chu Liue's lips slowly curved up. Very good. This one sentence easily turned his suspicions into certainty. Rong Zhen's disappearance was indeed related to her. However, she didn't remember when she was with Rong Zhen. Before leaving the imperial city, she didn't even show her face. Situ Xingqian was lying. Chu Liwei, what else do you have to say now? Seeing that Chu Liwei didn't say anything for a while, Rong Jin thought that she was guilty, so he spoke again. After pausing for a moment, he continued. I know that Rong Zhen isn't dead yet. As long as you hand her over, I promise that I won't kill you. Chu Liwei coldly glanced at him. Your Highness, are you going to convict me based on her one-sided words? Digression, there's one more update later. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from LoveWeb. Chapter 360. Of course not. As long as you can produce evidence to prove that you didn't do it, no one will make things difficult for you, said Rong Jin. Chu Liue's lips curved up slightly. This means that I have to find a way to prove my innocence to clear my name when others slander me and pour dirty water on me? However, I don't know how to prove something that I didn't do. Rong Jin was speechless. Actually, if he wasn't worried about his and his mother's future situation, he wouldn't want to force Chu Liue like this. After all, Rong Zhen's disappearance had already been exposed, and his father definitely knew about Ximeng's existence. According to his understanding of his father, the latter point might be more serious than the former. Now, he could only think of a way to find Rong Zhen to salvage the situation. Isn't this just your side of the story? I can't believe it completely either. If you're not guilty, follow me back to the Imperial City now. Clarify things in front of father and mother personally. As he spoke, he reached out to pull Chu Liue. Chu Liue moved her feet lightly and easily avoided his actions. Rong Jin was stunned. Chu Liue's cultivation level was lower than his, but she was clearly stronger than him now. This made him feel even worse, and he felt an indescribable sense of suffocation. When he was with Situ Xingqian, he didn't feel this way. Thinking of this, he became a little impatient. What? Are you guilty? Before Chu Liue could speak, Xuanhuan said coldly, You've already left the library. Anyway, you've already left the library. Isn't it just nice to go back with Rong Jin? Rong Jin was secretly shocked. Chu Liue actually only stayed here for such a short period of time? But if that's the case, it's even better. The few of them focused their gazes on Chu Liue, clearly wanting her to agree to this suggestion. Chu Liue's gaze turned cold. She hated it when people forced her to do things, especially when this person was someone she detested. What if I don't agree? Once she said that, the surrounding atmosphere instantly froze. Country Yao Chen Imperial Study. Rong Qi stood outside the door looking anxious. Eunuch Min, I'll have to trouble you to inform him again. This prince really has something important to report to Imperial Father. Eunuch Min looked troubled. Your Highness King Ping, it's not that I don't want to help you, but there's really no way to help you. His Majesty had lost his temper this time, and he was still angry. If you go in now, not only will you not be able to help the Empress, you will make things more troublesome. Listen to my advice and go back first. When His Majesty is in a better mood, it won't be too late for you to plead for leniency. Rong Qi frowned. Eunuch Min, why don't you believe me? This prince really didn't come here to plead for Imperial Mother. She really had something important to tell Imperial Father. Digression. Everyone, sleep early. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 361. Get in. Search the place thoroughly inside and out. Don't miss a single corner. Yes. With Lu Yun's order, the guards immediately rushed forward, intending to knock down the door of the Chu residence. When Chuning arrived, he happened to see this scene. Lu Yun. He immediately yelled out. How dare you? Lu Yun looked back and saw Chuning hurrying over with a group of people. Not only was there not the slightest trace of panic on his face, he even revealed a gloating smile. Oh, isn't this Lord Chuning? You're busy with government affairs. Why are you suddenly here in broad daylight? Chuning quickly stepped forward with a cold expression. This is my residence. Let's see who dares to barge in. When he spoke, he contained the powerful aura of a stage 5 warrior, immediately causing Lu Yun to feel a tightness in his chest. Even the guards standing at the door were fearful. They couldn't help but stop and look at each other. Lu Yun was annoyed and the smile on his face gradually faded. Lord Chuning, what are you doing? I'm here today on His Majesty's orders. If you really want to stop me, you're defying the orders. Chuning stared at him coldly. I naturally don't dare to defy His Majesty's orders. But even if you want to search, you have to give a reason, right? After all, I'm the commander of the Imperial Guards. I'm sorry, Lord Chuning. We're just following orders. If you really want to know the reason, why don't you find His Majesty personally? Lu Yun snorted and waved his hand. Continue. Yes. Chuning was about to step forward when Zhao Ming suddenly persuaded in a low voice. Lord, you must calm down. This time they're here on His Majesty's orders. If this matter blows up, it won't do you any good. His Majesty might even think that Chuning was defying the orders. Chuning took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. All right. Since that's the case, I'll see what you can find. He had never done anything wrong, so naturally he wasn't afraid of this. But why did His Majesty suddenly act like this? Lu Yun saw Chuning lowering his head and felt smug. During this period of time, Lu Yao had been harmed miserably by the Chu family. The worst ones were Chuning and Chu Luiyue. If they hadn't deliberately stirred up trouble, Lu Yao would still be in control of the Chu clan's finances. How could they have fallen to the point where they were hated by everyone? He wasn't on good terms with Lu Yao, but Lu Yao was still a member of the Lu family. Her reputation was ruined, and the Lu family was implicated as well. More importantly, she still had to go back and ask the Lu family for money to fill those holes. He was dissatisfied with Lu Yao, and even more resentful of Chuning and his daughter. Now that he had a chance to deal with them, he would definitely not miss it. Dong. The door was slammed open. Numerous guards swarmed in. Lu Yun flashed a provocative smile at Chuning, then stepped inside. Chuning frowned and followed closely behind. The group of people had already spread out, quickly and violently searching the courtyard and rooms. Lu Yun stood in the middle of the courtyard, hands behind his back, issuing orders without pause. That room. Go in and look for it. And the one next to him. We've searched thoroughly. Did someone go to the backyard? If you find anything out of the ordinary, report it immediately. Chuning was standing not far away. She clearly saw those people throwing out many things from his bedroom. Mattresses, bookshelves, clothes. Even things like tea sets, brushes, and ink were thrown on the ground outside. Many things were broken and the floor was in a mess. Lu Yun turned around to look at Chuning. When he saw the latter's ugly expression, he couldn't help but move closer and persuade him proudly. Lord Chuning, don't be angry. This is His Majesty's decree. Instead of being angry, why don't you think about what your precious daughter has done? Chuning's gaze sharpened as he stared at Lu Yun. What did you say? Lu Yun shrugged nonchalantly. Chuning's brows furrowed even tighter. He never thought that this matter had something to do with you, what did you do for His Majesty to issue such an order? While he was thinking, he suddenly saw those people about to rush into Chu Liyue's room. How dare you? Chuning shouted sternly. In a flash, he appeared in front of those people. Lu Yun raised his brows. Oh, Lord Chuning, are you really going against His Majesty? Chuning's gaze swept across the crowd as he enunciated each word clearly. You can search if you want, but if you dare to damage anything in here, don't blame me for being merciless. His aura was extremely strong, and coupled with his stern voice, it made everyone fearful. Even Lu Yun couldn't help but shudder as he forced himself to speak. Didn't you hear me? Be careful. Chuning finally moved aside after hearing his words. Those people no longer had the excitement from before, and they walked in carefully. Chuning stood at the door, his gaze like a sharp blade scraping back and forth between them. Lu Yun felt very aggrieved, but he also knew that if he angered Chuning, he wouldn't have a good ending. Thus he could only swallow his anger. When they found something, he would definitely ask His Majesty to punish Chuning severely. Chuning stared at these people's movements as he kept thinking about why His Majesty suddenly did this. You went to Tai Yen Academy 10 days ago and hadn't been home during this period. What were they looking for here? Just as Chu Ning was puzzled, someone suddenly shouted from outside, Master, Lord Lu. Found it? Chu Ning was shocked and immediately turned around. He saw a guard suddenly run over from the backyard and quickly rushed to Lu Yun, presenting the item in his hands. Lord Lu, please take a look. Lu Yun picked up the hairpin and took a closer look. His expression changed and he sneered at Chu Ning. Lord Chu Ning, the evidence is conclusive. What else do you have to say? Chu Ning quickly walked over. What are you talking about? Lord Chu Ning, why are you acting dumb? Lu Yun raised the hairpin in his hands and sneered. This hairpin is the fourth princess's accessory, but it has now appeared in your backyard. Are you still going to deny it? Chu Ning was stunned for a moment before he suddenly understood. Fourth Princess Rongzhen went missing, and His Majesty even put the Empress under house arrest because of it. Not many people knew about this, but as the Imperial Guard's commander-in-chief, he was well aware of it. And now, the missing fourth princess's accessory had been found in their house. Are you suspecting that you hid the fourth princess? Chu Ning blurted out. It's not a suspicion. Now that we have evidence, it's a fact. Lu Yun put away the hairpin and looked at him mockingly. Lord Chu Ning, please come with us. Prince Li's mansion. Rong Xiu was taking a nap on a rattan chair when Umo quickly ran over. Your Highness, Lord Chu Ning has been arrested. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.